You are listening to the Booktrospective Podcast, a podcast for all types of books. And even though we read all types of books across all different types of genres, we want to give a disclaimer. Many of our books and a lot of our content sometimes is intended for mature audiences. And we don't believe in censorship, but we do want our listeners to have the opportunity to decide if our episode or podcast is good for them. So with that, let's get into the episode. Hey, it's Dominique.
And Keely.
And you are listening to Booktrospective. And this week we are doing Monday's Not Coming by Tiffany D. Jackson.
Yeah.
I got the whole thing right. Yay. We are only 2 days after the last time I saw Keely, so I'm not going to ask her how her week has been. I'm trying to think if there's anything else we could talk about before we get started. I don't really think so. We've already been talking for like 30 minutes.
Yeah, we probably should have just halted everything and started talking when we turned on the mic.
It's okay.
I feel like we do this all the time, though.
I know. We were talking about how we have to set reminders for everything in our phones because our brains don't work. You guys know my brain doesn't work. Just so if anyone was concerned, I survived from my panic attack. My face and eyebrows do still move. The Botox did not kill me. I'd learned my lesson and I won't do it again. But yeah, I don't have anything really. So, we really can just kind of get into it. Keely's gonna do the blurb. I want to give like multiple points of warnings this episode. So this is going to be a very heavy episode. It's also loosely based off of two different cases that I will talk about at some point in this episode, probably at the end of the episode. But there is a lot of discussion. I don't even know what's in the blurb, and so I'll just go ahead and put a warning here. But this book discusses child abuse, mention of child sexual abuse. Trying to think what other kind of warnings. Verbal abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse, all types of abuse. That's really the main things. Murder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't come into this book thinking that it's going to be all sunshine and rainbows, because it's not.
It is not. It is a tear-jerker. Mm-hmm. It definitely not a happy ending. So definitely a good read. Definitely a good book.
I love Tiffany D. Jackson.
I love this book. It was a reread for me. I loved it when I read it last time. I still love it now. And my daughter's only 10 and I would love for her to read this book. But it's just not like a happy book. So I just want to put that warning out now, even before the blurb, because I don't know what Keely's going to read. So, So Keely, if you want to go ahead and do the blurb.
Yeah, I got you. Monday Charles is missing, and only Claudia seems to notice. Claudia and Monday have always been inseparable, more sisters than friends. So when Monday doesn't turn up for the first day of school, Claudia's worried. When she doesn't show up for the second day or second week, Claudia knows that something is wrong. Monday wouldn't just leave her to endure tests and bullies alone. Not after last year's rumor, and not with her grades on the line. Now Claudia needs her best friend, and only friend, more than ever. But Monday's mother refuses to give Claudia a straight answer, and Monday's sister April is even less help. As Claudia digs deeper into her friend's disappearance, she discovers that no one seems to remember the last time they saw Monday. How can a teenage girl just vanish without anyone noticing that she's gone?
So, I guess we can do this part. I don't think it'll be too morbid, but if you could summarize this book in one word, what would you say?
Heartbreaking.
Oh, yeah, it definitely is. I would say traumatizing.
Yeah.
Definitely. So, general summary. Monday is the name of, like, kind of a main character, a secondary main character in this book. Monday is the best friend of Claudia. They are in the 8th grade. They live in Washington, D.C. They both are Black girls. And Claudia comes from probably like a middle, what do we call it? How do you say that? Like middle income home. Monday does not. She comes from like a lower income kind of home. And for the most part, Monday spends a lot of her time with Claudia. This book has a kind of a strange timeline. So we get the way the book is broken down. So we get month by month. And then in each month we get what is called like the before, the after, and then we get like 1 and 2 years before the before. I will try if you stay for the actual book breakdown, I will do my best to break that down as clearly as possible. So it jumps around a lot. I mean, when you're actually reading it, it's not hard to follow, but I will do my best. So we get lots of different timelines, but these two girls have been together most of their life, but they are basically the only friends that they have, and they are going into their 8th grade year, but Monday does not show up. And it's very strange. Claudia went to her grandma's house in Georgia, I believe, for the summer. And when she comes back, she hasn't talked to Monday all summer. And it's because she's like one of the only kids that's not allowed to have a cell phone. And because Monday comes from a lower income home, she can't afford to have a cell phone. So she comes home, she calls her, the phone's disconnected. She's like, that's weird. So she goes to school and she's like, where is Monday? Monday also has siblings. She has we learn later in the book, this is kind of weird that we don't learn it early. She has an older sister named April, but then she has a younger brother named August and a younger sister named Tuesday. And so they also don't show up at school. And so not only is Claudia like, where's my best friend? But she has absolutely no other friends in this school. And so we go month by month with Claudia like dealing with the fact that she's lonely, she's kind of getting bullied, she's struggling at school. In this area of DC, they also like apply to high schools. They don't just automatically go to one high school based on district. They basically kind of pick the high school they want, or try to pick. They have to apply to get into different high schools. Her family is very big in the church, so she's kind of like stepped out of her involvement in church, but her mom's trying to get her back into that. And she is very determined to find out, where is Monday? Like, why is she not around? And so she is really the only one who cares to find out where is Monday. Her mom does care, and she has a teacher from last year in 7th grade who does care, but everyone else is kind of like, but it's not our business, or I left a phone, like a voicemail, but no one is like, obviously has much invested into this as Claudia. And it basically gets to the point where Claudia is just like, no one's listening to me, and why doesn't anyone care? And so without giving too much away, that's as much as I can really say. There's a lot of very dark parts in this book, and there's not a happy outcome. So yeah, I mean, that's as spoiler free as I can possibly be. So if you have not read this book, or you do not want to be spoiled, this is your notice to pause and come back later. Otherwise, we're just going to go ahead and dive right in. We start out, or actually, I just want to say one more time, I just want to give trigger warnings again. So there is mention of all types of abuse in this book. It is child abuse. There is verbal, physical, mentions of sexual abuse, murder. I have a hard time. I never know like what is technically like, there's probably warnings listed, and I try to look them up and put them in the actual like podcast episode description, but they are just horrible triggers. So if those things sound like something you're not going to be interested in hearing, then I'm finding the warnings right now. Yeah, I always try to like look them up, and I just put trigger warnings, but I didn't look and see like what they actually say.
There is this website that I go to that has
that helps.
Book trigger warnings. That's what it's called. Oh, and you can just like type in the book and all the trigger warnings. Okay. Oh, there's quite a few.
I'm not surprised.
So, trigger warnings: ableism, addiction, bullying, child abuse, including neglect, character death, graphic, domestic abuse, domestic violence, grief, homophobia, mental illness, PTSD, racism, trauma, and violence.
Okay. So we have it there. Okay, so we start out in September, and the first part of September is called The Before. And it says, this is the story about her best friend. No one cared, and no one found her for 1 year. So this story takes place in Washington, D.C., And basically, this is Claudia speaking, and she's telling us that a podcast came out about the case recently and brought all of these details back up for her, which is why she's telling this story now. And the story begins the day before 8th grade. So Claudia is asking her mom if she's seen Monday. She's just come back from her grandma's in Georgia for the summer, and Monday hasn't responded to any of the letters she wrote her over the summer, which is something she always does, but normally they write back and forth. Her mom says maybe she just didn't go to the post office, but they had like already purchased their stamps, so there wasn't any reason for her to go to the post office. She just had to stick it in the mailbox. So as soon as she gets home, she calls and she says, like, the phone says it's the wrong number, but she only has 2 numbers memorized, and one of them is Monday's. So she goes to the first day of school, and her mom tells her to make sure she checks in at the library when she leaves school that day, and she calls it leaving breadcrumbs because Claudia's like, I don't need a babysitter, and her mom says, it's not a babysitter, you know, you just check in so somebody knows where you were and they saw you. It's breadcrumbs. And we learned that Claudia is not allowed to have a cell phone until she gets to high school. Claudia has been trying to call Monday, and she's still not having any luck. And she goes, like, it's the first day of school. She goes, like, in the yard or wherever they're kind of, like, meeting before school, and she doesn't see her. And she says Monday is usually the first one there before anyone else. Monday is her only friend, and so she's panicked to go to class without her, but she doesn't have any choice. She also doesn't see Monday's brother, August, who should be with the 5th graders, or her little sister, Tuesday, who would be starting kindergarten. She notices during attendance that there's no extra seats for Monday, and then when they start doing attendance, they get to her name, and she's like, Monday should be before her, so they've skipped her name as well. After school, she tries calling Monday 5 more times and still doesn't go through. Monday doesn't show up the rest of the week, and so she finally asks a kid named Daryl, who lives in Monday's complex, if he's seen her, and he says no, he didn't see her all summer. He says he saw Monday's mom the other day next door to what they call the pit stop, which is basically known as a drug house. Claudia asks if he saw her other siblings, and he doesn't know if he saw them either. We learn that Monday lives in public housing, and it's basically known as the Hood. They call it, like, Edinburgh. Neither Claudia's mom or Monday would ever let Claudia go to Monday's house, but she decides to ride her bike over there anyways. So she goes up to the house, and Monday's mom answers the door and tells her Monday's not here, and is like, why are you over here asking all these questions? And she's basically like, I just want to know if Monday's going to be at school on Monday. So her mom says, you know, your bougie ass mom doesn't want you here, and she can smell alcohol in her breath. And she's just thinking that her mom has never talked to her that way. And she says, okay, well, where is Monday? Is she okay? And her mom lunges at her and says, I told you she ain't here. Now go home. So she heads home, and her dad starts joking with her about dance. So we learn that Claudia is a dancer, and she talks about how her dad is like a big bald man, which is funny because like black girls always joke about how like, I don't need a man. I got a big bald black daddy, and like he loves me, and like bald black men are supposed to be like the best dads or whatever. I don't know. It's just funny. So at dinner Saturday night, she tells her parents how Monday has been missing from school, and she asks her dad to take her to Monday's tomorrow, but he basically tells her he kind of has some plans. So her mom says that she can probably take her this week, or no, she says that she thinks Monday will probably show up this week, and Claudia thinks that Monday is Monday's favorite day of the week, and it's not just because she's named after it, but because she was always the first one to school, bundled up before the gates even open. And this is when I said, yeah, that's probably because she's being abused at home, and she can't wait to get to school on Monday to get a meal and get out of the house, because that is a telltale sign of abused kids. And I'm like, Claudia doesn't know that because she's a child. So Monday comes, and Claudia waits for her with a slice of cake, but she never shows up. We're still in September, but now we switch over to the after. It's Saturday, and the phone rings, and she's very excited. This is Claudia, but it's just someone from the church for her mom, and it's not Monday. So she starts journaling in a journal that Monday had given her for Christmas one year, even though Claudia hates anything to do with writing. And she basically is like, starts writing to Monday because she doesn't have any way to talk to her, and she hasn't seen her. Now we're still in September, but we're going to 1 year before the before. Claudia and Monday are walking home from school. They're talking about how Claudia was basically asked to read a scripture at church, and she doesn't want to do it, but she can't play sick because she's also on the church dance team, and they've been like working on a routine, and so she can't like do the dance and then not read the scripture. They go to a Chinese takeout place to get food, but Monday doesn't have any money. So Claudia's like, oh, it's fine. Like, I got some money, whatever. And these boys come in and start trying to flirt with them. And Claudia's just kind of noticed how Monday started to develop, but Claudia hasn't. And so they try to leave, but the boys kind of block their way. And then they're able to, like, you know, to get out of the way, which is my worst nightmare. It's like going to the gas station and guys like catcall. I swear to God, that will stress me out. I will leave. I will leave. So they're walking and they stop by the library where Claudia has to go to, because her mom makes her go to check in. And so she goes in and drops her breadcrumbs. And then they basically spend the afternoon working on dance routines. And Monday tells her that they should try out for the cheerleading team, which is a surprise to Claudia because these two girls, Shayla and I can't remember what the other girl's name is, but there's two girls that are kind of like bullies, you know, the two girls at school. They're on the cheerleading squad and they don't like them. So she's like, why would you want to be on the cheerleading squad? Claudia asked Monday, I thought we were going to wait till high school and try out for the dance team. And Monday says, well, we could do both. But Claudia doesn't want to try out for the cheer team because she doesn't want the other girls to steal Monday away from her. They go to a block party like for the neighborhood and Claudia's parents are there and Monday's mom is there. And she just remembers how Monday's mom just like kind of snapped off at Monday. We're going into October and we are in the before. There are people just asking Claudia questions about if she had ever seen any signs of Monday being in trouble. And she's like at school and there's girls picking on her, basically saying how Claudia was a lesbian with Monday. She has to eat lunch alone now. And instead of doing that, she decides to go to her 7th grade English teacher's classroom. And this teacher's name is Miss Valenti. Her teacher hadn't heard about the fact that Monday hadn't been here this year. And so she is kind of like concerned. So she takes Claudia to the office to find out what's going on. And as they're going, Miss Valenti kind of asks her about high school because, again, they get to pick. Oh, I was like, what is that? They get to pick which high school they want to go to. And basically, Monday wanted to go to this high school called Banneker. So, of course, Claudia wants to go to Banneker. And Miss Valenti is like, okay, but what do you want to do? So they get to the office and the secretary is like, Monday and her siblings are not registered. And we learned that Miss Valenti actually moved to DC from New York. And so she's basically like, well, when I worked in New York, if a student didn't register for school, we would do like a follow-up. So did you guys do a follow-up? And the secretary basically says like, we have a lot of kids, kind of like we're overworked, blah, 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 like one of those things. But she's like, okay, like we'll make a phone call or something like that. Then we go into the after. We're still in October. And Claudia is being moved up in her dance class because, again, she is a dancer and her parents pay for her to do dance. And she's in a class with a bunch of older girls now. And it seems like the older girls don't want her there. So she's starting to really second guess herself. Still in October, but we are back in the before. She is at a store with her mom and she thinks she sees Monday. So she runs after her, but then she realizes it's Monday's older sister, April. April tells Claudia that Monday's staying with her aunt and that her aunt doesn't have a phone right now, so she can't call her. So Claudia asks, when is Monday going to be back? And April just tells Claudia to stay away and don't do this right now. We jump to 1 year before the before, and Monday and Claudia are discussing boys that they think are cute. Monday is newly obsessed with boys in general, and Claudia still isn't. And Monday really likes the finest boy at the school. His name is Jacob Miller. Every girl's obsessed with him and he knows it. So he's super cocky, which Claudia doesn't like about him. Monday says that Jacob has mentioned going to Banneker. So of course that's probably why Monday wants to go to Banneker. And Jacob plays basketball. So she's like, he's going to be on the basketball team. We could be on the dance team. We just got to find you a boyfriend and we could double date. So they're working on homework and Monday looks at Claudia's essay and kind of snaps at her and is like, this is not good. We won't get into a good high school because Banneker is also a really hard high school to get into. And so she's like, we won't be able to get you into a good high school if you don't get good grades. And so she basically takes over writing Claudia's essay. And Claudia is like, you can go to Banneker. I don't have to go to Banneker. And Monday's like, what? And she's like, I don't have to go to Banneker. They skip ahead a little bit, and Monday is kind of braiding her brother's hair because he's messed it up. And Claudia comments on how Monday and her brother's relationship is really more of a mother-son relationship than a brother-sister relationship. Claudia tells Monday that she should braid the boys' hair at school because they call them Bamas. And she says that because all their hair will be looking a mess and she could like charge them. And Monday's like, that's a really good idea. So the next day at school, she just like walks up to this group of boys and she's like, I'll braid your hair for $7. And one of the boys is like, okay. And one of the boys is like, I mean, how do you know she can braid? And he's like, well, that's half of what I pay. And her hair is always braided good. So one of the boys lets her braid it and she does it like super quick and it looks really good. So then all of them are like, braid my hair or whatever. So Monday tells Claudia that she should charge and do nails because Claudia is really good with nails. Like she can do them like professionally. So normally like when the girls are together on the weekends, Claudia will do the nails and Monday will braid each other's hair. And also throughout this book, Claudia always talks about colors. I wrote like some notes down about it. I didn't write down all of them, but she's always talking about colors. And basically Monday says like we could open like a little beauty shop at the school. So after she braids all the boys' hair, they have like a little bit of money, they get food and they go back to Claudia's and they have like this makeshift tent that they always have and they're eating in this tent. And Claudia asks what happened to Monday because she has like covered in bruises on her back. And Monday's like, oh, like I fell out of bed. And Claudia knows that because like Monday's like, oh, you know I sleep wild. And Claudia's like thinking to herself like, no, you sleep like you have a boulder on your back and you barely even breathe. Like, no. And Claudia knows that Monday's told her that she shares a room with her sister and supposedly they have a bunk bed. So Claudia's like, well, can you ask April if you can sleep on the bottom bunk? And she's like, no, April said, you know, she claimed the bottom bunk. She's got all her stuff down there, blah, blah, blah. And for some reason, Claudia is like envisioning Monday's room to be like this cream room with cream carpets and like gold bunk beds with like this super nice iPod player. Like but she's never even been to Monday's house. Well, she's never been inside of the house. She's been there to drop her off. So then we go back to the before. Claudia's trying to write her essay to get into the high school, which is Banneker. So even though Monday's not here this year, she's like, okay, well, that was the plan. Like wherever Monday's at, she assumes that she's still trying to get into Banneker. So she's trying to write it. And the question for the essay is, why do you want to go to Banneker? And well, the only reason she wants to go is because Monday wants to go there. So she doesn't really have a good answer. The guidance counselor is also with her and basically is telling her that it's a very hard school to get into and basically her history and her current grades and GPA aren't going to cut it. And he suggests that she goes to the learning center and she gets really triggered by that and she's like, no, I'll be fine. And she asked if he knows why Monday's not coming to school and he says, oh, like didn't she move away? And as she's leaving, she hears someone say that maybe Monday got sent away because they were lesbians. And they're like, oh, like, didn't they get caught in the bathroom last year? And someone else was like, oh, I guess Monday gets down with girls and guys. So, like, there's all this gossip going around about Monday and Claudia. Then we also hear this conversation going on about how Monday's neighborhood is supposed to be getting bulldozed and how none of the families there are like, they're all getting kicked out and they're not going to be let back in. So there's all this like side conversation going on. Claudia goes to the library and basically asks about Monday because basically like Monday was always in the library. And so apparently she's on the late return list, which is very strange because Monday would never return a book late. Like she's always in the library. And the book that hasn't returned is Flowers in the Attic, which if you don't know what Flowers in the Attic is, they tell you later in this book, but it's basically a book about how this lady had kids and she gives the kids to her mom because she's dating this guy and she doesn't want him to know that she has kids. But then the grandma tries to like poison them. And then while the kids are like stuck in this attic, they start to like have like relations and there's a lot of incest. Like it's a very traumatizing book. Yeah. And it's also a movie. So if you want to watch it and get the short version, you can. So that's that. Where was I at? Okay. But Claudia asked about the book and she looked and basically Monday checked out this book a week before Claudia left for Georgia. So it's been checked out all summer and Monday hasn't returned it. At this point, it's almost Halloween and her mom asked Claudia, like, why are you not excited about Halloween? And Claudia finally kind of breaks down and says that Monday's not here and we were supposed to be sexy cops and I don't have any friends. And her mom says, of course you have friends. And she says, no, I don't. No one likes me. And so this is the first time that she's letting her mom know that she doesn't have any friends because her mom has no idea. I don't know why she doesn't have any idea because you only ever seen her talk or be with Monday, but okay. Her mom tells her that they can go by Mondays one day after church, and that she'll try and talk to Monday's mom, but only if Claudia agrees to join the teen ministry at church, and that it might be good for her to try and make some friends. So she hasn't been doing anything church related besides actually like attending the service since that time when she was supposed to give or like read the scripture. So she ended up dropping out of the dance team so that she didn't have to do the scripture either. And so she agrees to this. So we go to the after, and she ends up going to the church Halloween event. And there's a boy there named Michael, and she doesn't recognize him at first because she hasn't been going to stuff. And so they used to call him Mikey, but he's kind of grown up now. So he's like, it's Michael now. And he's basically like asking her why she hasn't been around. He used to be very chubby, but he's, gotten tall. He's in high school. He's on a football team now. And he asked her to hang out and says that it just seems like she could use a friend. And that makes her go like, did my mom put you up to this? And he's like, well, like I ran into her. And so that pisses her off and she storms off. We jump to 2 years before the before. So the girls went trick-or-treating this year with both of the moms, so Claudia's mom and Monday's mom, and then also Monday's little brother August. And so they're coming back to Claudia's house, and they had left April and Tuesday at the house because Tuesday was still kind of like a baby at this point. So they get back, and Monday's mom like takes all their candy. She's like, I gotta check this for razor blades. Like, ain't no razor blades in this damn candy. I have never encountered somebody that has found razor blades in their candy or drugs. I'm just saying. I don't know. But anyways, so Monday's mom is checking the candy, and so Monday's mom is checking the candy, and she asked Claudia's mom, did she notice that one of the houses they went to was like a friend they knew, and basically the mom at this house, the husband is beating on her and like obviously had bruises on her face. And so Monday's mom is like, we need to do something. And Claudia's mom is like, it's not none of my business. Like, what am I going to tell her? Leave her husband? And Monday's mom is like, I mean, yeah, like, she can't stay. So they're kind of like arguing about that. And basically Claudia and Monday always try to diffuse the situation because their moms aren't friends, but obviously they're best friends. So they don't want them to like fight and keep them apart. So Claudia tries to intervene and asks if she can use the computer, but their computer is broken. So Monday's mom goes, you don't need to use a computer anyways because the government's always watching y'all, and they're even watching to see what books y'all read at the library. So Claudia's mom tells them to just go get ready for bed because Monday's going to spend the night anyways. So they head upstairs, and then they hear Monday's mom trying to talk to Claudia's mom again and about like the husband and the wife again. So the next day they go to church, and they kind of hear that the husband does end up going to hiding because they kind of like, he does get confronted about beating on this lady. We go to November, and we start out this kind of section with Claudia saying that if Monday's mom was a color, she would be yellow, bright, tart, but also easily tainted by another color. The first section of November is the before, and it says finding Monday was Claudia's was her top priority. So Claudia goes to see Miss Valenti again, and Claudia keeps mentioning that she has some type of problem, like personally with herself, that only Monday knows. So she asked Miss Valenti about Monday again, and Miss Valenti is like, no one's checked on Monday. Like, she thought like that was all taken care of because she hadn't heard anything else. So she's like, okay, we're going to the office again. So they go to the office, and they tell them like, we tried to call a few times and the phone is out of service. So they called social services, and they filed basically with the child and family services, but the social worker is off this week. And Claudia's like, why does Monday need a social worker? And basically Miss Valenti tries to say like, oh, sometimes people just need like extra help. But Claudia knows like a social worker means like there's been some kind of abuse. And she's like, I would know if Monday's being abused, right? Wrong. Then Claudia's mom takes Claudia to Monday's, and they pull up, and before she gets out of the car, Claudia's mom calls her dad and just says, hey, I just want you to know that I'm here, because again, she's always leaving breadcrumbs. So when they pull up, Claudia can see like the curtain move upstairs and she wonders if that's Monday watching them. So when Claudia's mom goes up to the door, Monday's mom answers and is like, what do y'all want? And she's like starting to complain about how the government wants to tear down their apartments and build condos for white people and how she can't get a job. Claudia's mom says, Monday's mom says, I told Claudia the last time she was here that Monday was at her dad's house. And Claudia's mom is like, oh, she didn't tell me that she was here, knowing good and well that Claudia is not ever supposed to come over here. So they get back in the car and her mom snaps at her and says, oh, so you think you're grown? And she's like, you are grounded. So they go home and it's almost Thanksgiving. So her mom doesn't tell her dad that she came to Mondays without permission, but she punishes her by literally make her do the Thanksgiving prep. She makes her clean the whole house, like chop all the celery, clean the greens, chop a bunch of cheese, like sweat in the kitchen. She is miserable. So Claudia can't remember a time that Monday has ever talked about her dad. So she can't possibly fathom why she would be living with her dad now. Claudia's mom asks her dad when he gets home right before Thanksgiving if he remembers Monday's dad, who they call Tip, and asks if he's ever kept in touch with him because supposedly Monday's living with him now. And this makes Claudia know, like, her mom doesn't really believe this story either. And her dad is like, basically like, just stay out of their business. But Claudia's mom is like, we just want to call and check on her. Like, Monday hasn't been around. Like, and that's weird. Like, for somebody to be over here every day and then haven't seen her in like 6 months, you don't think that's weird?
Right.
And not even like saying goodbye before you go, like, that's weird. So her mom kind of snaps at her dad and is like, because her dad is like, I don't know that man's number. And she's like, well, do you want me to be looking for a random man's number or do you want to go get it? Because I just want to check on her. So he's like, okay, I'll get the number. We jump to 1 year before and Monday shows up randomly early one morning to Claudia's house and tells Claudia that she had snuck out that night to be with Jacob Miller. And she basically had climbed out of her bed or her bathroom window and like jumped down on these trash cans to get out. So Claudia like takes her up in her room and she like chastises her for doing that. She's like, you could have broke your leg and then you wouldn't be able to do the dance. And Monday says that, I've done it before. And basically she says that, Jacob asked her to come over and braid his hair, and then they watched a movie and he kissed her. Claudia asks if they had sex, and she says no, I told him I wouldn't until he tells everyone at school on Monday that we're together and that we're dating now. Claudia feels weird about Monday starting to like do all these things without her. And Monday basically has them like do all their hair and nails to get ready for Jacob's big announcement tomorrow at school. But the next day at school, they go in, and Jacob doesn't even acknowledge her. And someone asks Jacob, like, oh, who did your hair? And he goes, some girl. And at this point, I was like, I bet you she did sleep with him. Yep. I was like, I bet you anything. He sweet-talked her, and that hurts.
Yep.
That hurts bad. We go to the before, and Claudia's having a meeting with the school counselor and her parents. And at this point, she has not told her parents that her grades are suffering, so this is the first time they're learning about it. Before her parents get there, she asks the school counselor about Monday again, and he says that he hasn't been able to basically check on her. Her parents get there, and they're surprised to learn that she's struggling, and the counselors basically show her parents her work and how all of her letters are backwards. So basically, Claudia is severely dyslexic, and no one has caught on to this because basically all of her work Monday has done. So Monday and her have been in classes together all the time, and basically, any project they do, Monday would do like the fact finding and paper writing, and Claudia would do like the creative parts or whatever. But now Monday's gone, and so she has no choice but to do this stuff by herself. The counselor asked like if the parents were the ones helping her with her homework, and they're like, no, of course not. And he tells them that he wants to have her tested for dyslexia. And her parents ask, like, how can no one, like, first they're like, well, she just brought home a math test that had a 92 on it. And they do tell them, like, well, math is completely different. Like, this is different learning matter. And, dyslexia doesn't really affect that. then they ask, like, well, how come, like, she's been going to this school all her life. Like, why hasn't anyone caught this on any of the other tests? And he tells them that, this can manifest in other ways. And they're like, well, how? And basically he says the fights. And so apparently Claudia has been in a few fights, which her dad only knows of one, and her mom has kind of been keeping it a secret. And the counselors tell the parents that if she does get diagnosed, then she'll qualify for additional help as a student with learning disabilities. So on the way out of the school, her mom is super pissed at this counselor, like basically because she felt like the counselor was trying to put the blame on them. But then her dad is even more pissed at the mom because the mom hasn't been telling him about these fights at school, and basically is like, what else has been going on? Because Claudia's dad is like a truck driver, so he's not home most during the week. So all this stuff, is easy to like hide from him. Claudia asks her dad had he talked to Monday's dad, and he snaps at her and says, you need to stop worrying about Monday and worry about them grades, and don't say nothing else to me about Monday until those grades are better. We go to December, and Claudia sees Jacob Miller leaving the movies with a girl, and basically she says since they found Monday, he has fallen from grace. He got kicked off the basketball team, and he's been having a hard time. And Claudia says she doesn't feel sorry for him, and that she hopes that what happened to Monday messed with his head the same way that he had messed with Monday. Basically, Claudia's mom says that everyone deserves forgiveness, and she thinks that if her mom was a color, that she would be the color pink. We go to 1 year before the before, and it's been 3 weeks since Monday hooked up with Jacob Miller and like had snuck out of her house, and he still won't claim her. And so she's crying in the bathroom about it. Claudia thinks to herself that that's what happens when you step outside of your bubble, but obviously she's not going to say that to Monday. So she hugs her, and Monday kind of flinches, and then Monday thinks about, like, why is she doing that? So she hugs Monday, and Monday kind of flinches, and Monday, like, looks like she's kind of hesitant, but she finally decides to show her why, and there's literally teeth marks in Monday's shoulder. So Monday tells her that her brother August keeps having these strange tantrums out of the blue and bit her, which I think that August is autistic.
Yeah.
That was the conclusion I came to, and that he just was not getting the proper help that he needed. So Monday goes out and basically confronts Jacob when they leave the bathroom and says that you're going to tell everyone, but he's like, get off of me, like, stay away from me. He's like, I don't know what you're talking about. But then someone asks Jacob, like, oh, you hit that? And so another girl comes up and is like, of course he did. Monday's a hoe. So Monday says, I didn't. And Claudia tries to pull her away. And Monday tells Jacob, like, tell them the truth. And he says, no, we didn't. But that's only because she's a lesbian and she wants to be with Claudia. So Monday, like, snapped and, like, tackles him and starts, like, hitting his head against the locker. But then he hits her back. So Claudia, like, jumps on him. So Claudia and Monday are literally attacking Jacob. And no one's helping him because they're like, I'm not about to hit no girl. So somebody, like a teacher, finally intervenes. So they get taken to the principal's office, and Jacob gets taken to the hospital because he's bleeding. And Monday starts freaking out because she's like, my mom is going to kill me. My mom's going to kill me. And Monday's mom is the first parent to get there. So she comes in and she's asking, like, the school, like, why are you guys disciplining the girls and not the boys? Monday would never just hit him for no reason. Why don't you believe her? And her mom sees the blood from the bite marks and says, what is this? And Claudia decides to lie and says that Jacob bit her. And so one of the other teachers is like, Claudia, you can go on back to class. But Monday's mom, which her name is Miss Charles too. This is the only time I wrote that down. But Monday's mom basically says, like, nope, Claudia's not going anywhere because she's the only one standing up for my daughter. And then finally Claudia's mom gets there, and basically they let the girls go home for the day. And they are like, we're not going to suspend them. Like, they basically don't do anything because at that point, like, everybody's injured and they can't, like, justify punishing them and not Jacob, so they just let the whole thing go. When they go home, Claudia's mom basically is like kind of like snapping on Claudia, like, why are you fighting a boy? Like, he really could have hurt you. And she basically kind of says to Claudia, like, I don't expect this from you. And Monday's mom overhears that. She's like, oh, but you expect that from my daughter? So of course, like, that pisses her off. So they kind of like storm off and they go home. And Claudia tries to call Monday over the weekend, but she's not able to get a hold of her. So the next Monday at school, Monday comes in, but she seems like really dazed. Her hair isn't done, which is unusual, and she smells like pee. We go to the after, and Claudia's mom has signed her up for a tutor. She tries to refuse to go to the learning center but because she says it's school suicide. And her tutor is Miss Walker. She's like an older lady that goes to her church. And one day when she goes to the tutor's house, Michael, the boy from the church, is sitting there. And we learn that Miss Walker is his grandma. And she's like, I thought so-and-so was your grandma. And he's like, I don't know about you, but I have 2 grandmothers. So she's worried that he's going to figure out like she's having tutoring because she's dyslexic. So she's like, I was wrong. Like, this is the wrong day. So I'm just going to go ahead and go. And he actually tells her, like, well, I need to go to the mall and return something. Like, do you want to go with me? And he, like, tries to put his arm out and accidentally, like, grabs her boob. And so, like, they have, like, a real awkward exchange. So awkward. But she's like, yeah, like, whatever. I'll go to the mall with you. Even though she knows if she gets caught, like, she'll be in trouble. So they go to the mall, and of course Michael is like super friendly. Everybody knows him, like whatever. And so he's like talking with the lady, returning this thing for his grandma, and she's like, "Oh, you're so sweet." Like one of those, like, you know, like I hate him. Like everyone loves him. And then like of course he's like my fiance. He sees somebody he knows everywhere, like, hey Michael, like blah, whatever. And then of course they're like looking at Claudia like, who is this girl? So a boy named Cam comes up to Michael, and there's a girl with him, and it's a girl from Claudia's dance class, and her name is Megan, which all the girls again in her dance class are older than her because they go to the high school. So the girl does not speak to Claudia or even acknowledge that she knows her, and she's like basically kind of giving Claudia the look like, don't say that you know me. But Michael introduces Claudia, but he introduces her as, oh, this is just a girl from my church. Ouch. And the guy is like, oh, you're Monday's homegirl. And so she's like, how do you even know me? But that kind of like, you know, piqued her interest that somebody mentioned Monday. But she's kind of annoyed at how everyone kind of dismisses her. And they go to a couple other stores after that. And Michael asks her, like, you know, what's wrong? And she won't tell him. And then he's like, do you need to call your mom? And she's annoyed because she's like, even the church boy has a phone and I don't. So they go to Starbucks, and he's like, aren't you too young for Starbucks? And I'm like, when did this book come out? Oh, it came out a while ago, because I'm like, I don't know, 3-year-olds drink Starbucks now. But I'm like, when did this book come out?
You don't need to get
coffee. So I'm like, when did this book come out? But he's like, what are you going to get at Starbucks? And they get hot chocolate. But he gets hot chocolate, and he puts brown sugar in it. That is disgusting. I've never heard anybody
2018.
Okay. That's when I read it, I think. I mean, I feel like it was, I mean, Starbucks has been popular forever, and kids have been getting Starbucks forever. That was a weird question. But brown sugar? I've never in my life seen someone put brown sugar in hot chocolate.
No,
never. I do mix hot chocolate with coffee. I learned that at the nursing home. It's pretty tasty. But anyways. So Michael asks Claudia, like, why are you doing tutoring with my grandma? And she says to get into high school. And so he asks, like, you know, which one? And she says Banneker. And he's like, why do you want to go to that one? Everyone wants to go to that one. And he asks about the essay, and she says, you know, the essay is about why I want to go. And he's like, okay, so why do you want to go? So she says, it's a good school, like the generic answers. And she's like, it'll help me get into college. And he's like, any school will help you get into college. Like, give me something. And he says, you know, I'm not going to pretend that I didn't want to go there, but apparently Banneker doesn't have a football team, so that's why he didn't end up going there. When they get back to his grandma's house, she realizes that he kind of got put up to this. And she's like, did my mom put you up to this again? And he's like, no, actually, my grandma did this time. And basically, his grandma told him that she had a student, didn't say who, but basically she had a student who needed a friend and wanted him to, like, take them out. And he was like, I'm really glad it was you. So she thinks that his smile is sexy and asks, like, what else, like, did his grandma say? And he says not much, just that, you know, she seemed depressed. And she's like, I'm not depressed, but like, girl, yes, you are.
Right.
So he gives her his number and says, like, seriously, you can talk to me anytime if you need to. But all she can think about is how, like, when Monday stepped outside her bubble, like, basically started talking to Jacob, she got hurt. We go to the before, and she has to go to the learning center, which is basically on the east wing of her school, and all her other classes are on the west wing. And so if anybody sees you going from the west wing to the east wing, they basically know that you're going to the learning center. And so it's like, you know, when you go to the special classes, everybody's looking at you weird. So she takes like a back way or whatever. And so she's running late to her classes, and she runs into Miss Valenti. So Miss Valenti's like asking where she's going, and she like doesn't want to tell her, but then she's like, I'm coming from the learning center. And so Miss Valenti's like, oh yeah, they sent out a memo. And she's like, a memo? They told the whole school? Which I think that is kind of weird. Like,
yeah,
you tell the whole school who's in the learning center? But she's like, chill out. It wasn't, because she's like, is it on your desk? She's like, it was an email. It's fine. So Claudia's like, great. First, everyone thinks I'm a lesbian. Now everyone knows I'm stupid. And she's like, okay, you're not stupid. And she's like, she's like, we know you're not a lesbian, but if you were a lesbian, it's fine. And basically, this is where we learn that Miss Valenti is a lesbian, because she says, I have a beautiful wife. And she's like, you know, so if you were a lesbian, like, it's fine. And she's like, don't let these Bamas like get to you, basically talking about the boys. Claudia asks about Monday again, and Miss Valenti tells her, oh, they didn't tell you. And she says, Monday's mom called and said that they withdrew her from school and that they're homeschooling her. Miss Valenti finds it hard to believe that Monday's homeschooling, and Claudia says that how can she even be homeschooled if she's not at home? Miss Valenti says the social worker said that she is home, and Claudia's like, that's not true.
And I'm like,
like,
first she's at the aunt's,
and then she's at the dad's, and now she's at home. Okay. So Claudia decides that she's going to go to the police station by Monday's neighborhood because no one is listening to her at this point. So she goes and she tells them, like, I have a friend and I just want someone to check on her because I think that she's in trouble. And she's like, she's missing, but like, she's not like missing. Like, she doesn't want to say missing because like, obviously that sounds like a serious, like that's serious. So she's like, I don't like, I mean, she is missing, but like, is she missing? Mm-hmm. So the detective is like, okay, like, I'm going to listen to your story. But she's like, so she's telling him and she's like, why is he not writing anything down? And he goes like, well, how do you know she's missing if you haven't been inside the house? And she's like, I mean, I know she's not there. Like, come on now. Like, that would piss me off. Because why wouldn't she just come to the damn door?
Right.
That's how I know she's not there. And he tells her like, well, sometimes family business is just family business. And I'm like, and then of course he goes, well, how do you know she didn't run away? Because that's what they always go to. How many kids truly run away? Like, I honestly don't think that the percentage of runaways is as high as they try to make it.
And
I don't.
Runaway or not, she's...
Missing is missing.
Right.
Like, that would still be missing, right?
She's a child. She's like, what?
14?
14?
Yeah.
Like, that's still a child.
And wouldn't you be concerned that she ran away and her mom didn't report her?
Right.
Because I would be concerned. Like, because why does the mom not care?
And has she had a history of running away? Like...
And if you did even an ounce of work, you would find out that she had a social work case. Like...
Right.
Pissing me off. So then he takes her over to this board of missing girls and says... And Claudia's like, all these girls literally look like Monday. And he says, we've had over 50 girls reported in the last few weeks that have gone missing. And most of them have just run away. And I was like, you asshole. And he goes, basically, he tries to guilt her and says, when you come in here and tell us that your friend is missing, it takes time away from us looking for these other girls. Well, you weren't looking for jack shit because you was sitting here doing nothing. Like, what? Why would you say, like, oh my God. Oh my God. So then he tells her like, well, only a parent can file a missing person report if she's really missing. Okay, well, have you heard of a welfare check? Because that's the least you could do.
Right.
Anywho, so we skip ahead a little bit and Claudia is decorating the Christmas tree with her mom and thinking about the other girls that are missing and ask her mom if she can homeschool. And I said, girl, hell no. You literally just left the counselor's office about how you are doing your work. What do you mean homeschool? I laughed so hard. Like, girl, please be for real. Be so for real. Anyways, which is basically what her mom says. Like, girl, no. Anyways, because she tells her mom, like, well, Monday's homeschooling. And her mom says the age old, well, if Monday jumped off a bridge, would you jump off a bridge? And that used to piss me off when my mom said that to me. She used to piss me off so bad. But see, now I am a parent. And now I can relate. So they're decorating the tree, and there's only 4 ornaments, and they are angels. And she's like, here, Mom, that's all that left. And her mom's like, oh, I'll hang those. And basically, they are to symbolize, well, Claudia says they're to symbolize the 4 angels we've lost. And I've read this book before, but I couldn't exactly remember, and it gets confirmed in just a second, so I'll just say it. But it's basically to symbolize the 4 babies that her mom has lost. So we go to 2 years before the before, and Monday says, what's wrong with your mom? And Claudia says she lost the baby. And Monday says, dang, again. Monday tells Claudia that you don't want a bunch of babies around here anyways because you'll have to share everything. And Monday gives her her Christmas present, which is the first time that Monday's ever been able to give Claudia a Christmas present. So she opens it, and it's a journal. And Claudia's like, I don't want to snap, but she can't help it. And she's like, why would you buy me this when you know I can't write? So Monday says, well, maybe if you do, like if you write it every day, you'll get better, and like we can start at the new year. But Claudia's pissed. So we go to January, and Claudia opens the section by saying that basically she says, I'm not the best person to talk about Monday's bruises because she never gave much thought to them because they were kids. You know, like we run, we fall, we play all the time. She had read like the report about Monday that said there were over 24 bruises on her body when they found her. Monday comes into school this week and her braids are really fuzzy, fuzzier than they ever been. Her lips look really dry and she just seemed really out of it. And at this point I said, this reminds me of the Gabriel Hernandez story. Have you ever watched that?
I haven't, but I've heard a bit of the story. I have an issue with the kid cases.
It's horrible. It's one of those things where I was like, I have to watch this because like this child deserves for me to watch it. And I watched it on a weekend. I sat there and I literally just cried in my bed. I was so angry and so distraught. And literally as I was reading this book and like thinking about it, I was like wanting to be in tears again. And when I think about it and I can just see his little face and I get so angry and sad. And I wish nothing but horrible things on his parents every single day. Because like this is what this story makes me think of. It's just horrible. Like, I mean, I can talk about it more at the end because that's what it relates to, but like that's the same thing. And it's like, I made myself watch it because it was like, this child deserves me to sit here. Like what he went through is nothing in comparison to like what I feel sitting here and watch this. So I was like, I can sit here and be miserable and watch this for 4 hours. So I did. And I hated every minute of it, but yeah, it was so sad. Anyways. So, basically like they've just gotten back to school from winter break, and over winter break, Claudia and her family went to Georgia to see her grandma. So like while they were there, Claudia tried to call Monday, but she never answered. So Claudia's asking Monday like, what's wrong? But Monday just keeps saying nothing. So Monday follows her home from school, and like they go to the library, and Claudia's like, where is August? And Monday just says, oh, he's homesick. And like for the rest of the week, Claudia keeps saying like, where's August? And she says he's homesick. So the next week, Monday comes to school and she's like normal. So she was kind of weird like that whole first week back to school. But the next week she's normal. But Claudia keeps asking like, where is August? So this week, Monday snaps at her and is like, why do you keep asking? Like, he's not your brother. He's my brother. Like, don't keep asking about him. We go to the before. Claudia's at church with her mom and they're serving a buffet for MLK Day. And an older lady that lives in Monday's neighborhood comes through the line, and her mom asks if she's seen Monday. And the lady says, yeah. She's like, yeah, she got that like crazy blonde hair. So at first they're kind of like, oh, like, yeah, she saw Monday. But then they realize when she says that she hasn't seen Monday, because Monday did bleach her hair, but it's been like a long time. So they realize like, you ain't seen Monday lately. So when they get home that night, her mom tells her to go upstairs and get ready. And she hears her talking to her dad. And her mom is basically like, I don't feel right about Monday. Her dad's like, I don't want to talk about this again. And he's like, I go months without seeing people in this city. Dude, this is like, that's weird.
Yeah.
Sometimes like, I don't see my neighbors for a long time. And I think that's weird. And I don't even talk to them. But like, that is weird. To see somebody, like to have a kid in your house every day for 7-8 years, or like every other day, every weekend almost, and then for no absolute reason, with no explanation, and like their mom's still around, that's weird. And the mom to just like shift like that, That's weird. And for you to have no concern, like, I don't want to talk about it anymore. I don't talk, like, that's weird, dude. And I get that he wasn't there as much because he's, like, on the road, but, like, that's weird. I'm with the mom here.
Yeah.
And her mom's like, okay, but it was just, like, the holidays. Like, she comes around. Like, she doesn't miss Thanksgiving and, like, Christmas and stuff. Because I'm sure she doesn't get shit at home. So, like, I'm sure they were buying presents. Mm-hmm. Like, that's weird. So Claudia's mom is like, we've just been so busy with, they call Claudia Sweet Pea and stuff. And then her dad's like, yeah, like, that's what we're supposed to be focused on. And he says, like, maybe she didn't want to be friends with her anymore. And that's just, like, what girls do. They fall out. And he basically says, like, well, maybe they had a fight. And I'm like, Claudia, I feel like at this point, it's been, like, 5 months. If they had a fight, Claudia would say that, though. Like, okay, we did have a fight before summer. So maybe that's why. But, like, I want to make up, like, I think that would be something that would become, as much as Claudia's like harping on this, she would be saying that. That wouldn't be something that she's still keeping a secret. So, like, no, dude, no. So he says, like, I think it's time for her to meet new people, and says, like, basically today at the buffet, she was like kind of working with little kids, and he's like, she was so good with the kids, and like if Monday would have been there, she just would have sat in the corner, and like they kind of have like a funny language that they made up, and like they would have sat in the corner and talked in their funny language, blah 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 blah, and so Claudia goes to school the next day, and she's in the bathroom, and those girls, Shayla and whatever the girl's name is, come in there, and they like basically start messing with her because she's crying. They're like, oh, you miss your boo or whatever. And so she's pissed. She comes out of the stall and like runs into them. And Shayla's like, oh, I know you go to the learning center. And basically is like, she's basically like, oh, was that like you and Monday's deal? Like you pleasured her and like she wrote your paper. But then she's like, oh no, it must be the other way around. And so, like, she, like, tries to attack her, and then Shayla tries to, like, stick her head in the toilet, which I'm telling you right now, I don't play with, like, public toilets. That is disgusting. Like, that's going to make me murder you. Because, Claudia's, like, my face was, like, 2 inches from, like, her teeth touching a school toilet. When I get up from here, I'm going to kill you. And if I can't get to you at that moment, best believe I'm going to be at the bus stop at 3 p.m. Because... that is nasty. I don't even care about, like, the water. And I'm like, she was like, all she could smell was, like, the water and pee. I'm going to murder you. That is nasty. I'm going to kill you. That is so gross. Anyways, so she's, like, got her head down, like, almost into this toilet. And so she's like, help, help, help. And so finally, Miss Valenti comes in. And, of course, the girls are like, she started it. Which I'm like, it's 2 of you. I don't care who started it. So Miss Valenti tells the girls to go to lunch, and like she basically takes Claudia to the nurse. So when she gets to the nurse's office, there's a new nurse there since over winter break, and we learned that the old nurse had basically left a note, so there's a new nurse there, and then the nurse asks, like, what's her name? She gives her Monday's name. And so when she pulls out Monday's file, there's a note there that basically says from the old nurse that Monday could stop by from time to time and ask, like, basically she should ask extra questions and see if she needs anything. And Claudia thinks about the bruises that Monday would have. So the nurse is like, do you need anything? Do you need some time? And, Monday. Claudia says, no, I don't need anything, but she asks if her father's number is in there, and she's like, no, there's just a number for mom. So she asks if there's a nurse for the old number. I cannot speak today. She asks if there's a number for the old nurse, and there is, so the nurse gives it to her. And she notices that Monday's, like, nurse's chart is, like, super thick, too. We go to the after, and Claudia's in dance class, and the girl, Megan, that she saw at the mall with Michael, doesn't acknowledge her, but she hears her, like, talking to other girls, and they're kind of, like whispering, they're like, what the dance teacher said, and they say, like, I wonder if she knows yet, and Megan tells them to drop it. And apparently, Michael's been asking about Claudia too, so they're just kind of whispering about her. So Megan pulls her aside after class and asks if she told anybody that she saw her at the mall, and Claudia's like, no, why? And Megan says, oh, like, I told my mom I was taking extra dance classes and I don't want anybody to know that I was with my boyfriend. And Claudia's like, so why would you go to the mall? Like, why would you go to a public place if you're hiding from your mom? Like, anybody could have saw you. Like, fair. And she's like, fair, and they laugh. We go to 1 year before the before. Claudia thinks how Monday craves popularity now, like since that whole braid business kind of fell apart and everything has happened with Jacob. So Monday decides that she wants to perm and dye her hair and be like Beyonce. So she spends 8 hours on a Sunday trying to do her hair, and when she comes to school on Monday, she's wearing a pink bucket hat, and when she takes it off, her hair is burnt, fried, and orange. Ladies, if you have like any type 4 hair, any type of hair, honestly, you cannot perm and color your hair. You cannot do that. I don't recommend doing any of those things at home if you've never done it before. Right. Yeah, no. Horrible idea. So, of course, she takes the hat off, and like all the boys like start like joning on her, but then Miss Valenti kind of like starts joning on the boys and tells them to mind their business. So like she runs out and like goes to the bathroom, and Claudia tells her like my mom can fix it. Like she chases after her. So Claudia chases her to the bathroom, and like she's in a stall. She has the door locked. She won't open the door. So Claudia climbs under the stall. Again, the public bathrooms. Ew. Because even Monday's like, girl, this is a public bathroom. Yeah. Ew. So anyway, she crawls into the stall with her, and like basically she's like kind of holding Monday, and Monday basically admits like Jacob told her that he thought she would look sexy with blonde hair. So she basically like fried her hair for Jacob, and now he's making fun of her. So she lays her head in Claudia's lap. So they see something flash in the bathroom. So they like look around, but they don't see anything. So they just like they wait out another period because she's not ready to like go face the world with her hair yet. And then they just kind of like go on about their day. So the rest of the week, like, you know, obviously kids make fun of her. But Friday, Claudia's mom takes her to a real salon to get her hair fixed. And then they spend the weekend like hanging out. But they are not prepared for what happens on Monday. We go to the before, and Claudia is at band practice with her dad, and he asks her about a lump on her head, and he says, like, you know, you can talk to me about anything. And I was like, no, she cannot. Like, no, she cannot. And basically, she says the same thing because she lets him know, like, she overheard him talking to her mom about the fact that, like, she needs to get over the fact that Monday is gone. And he starts to tell her about her mom's pregnancy and how difficult it was. And like, she's like, oh, okay. So like, I basically almost killed my mom and like, I suck. And he's like, no, like, don't feel that way. Like, that's why your mom's never told you. I don't know. This is a very strange section. And so they stop in at the Chinese carryout place, and they run into April. So April, again, is Monday's older sister, and she has Tuesday, which is Monday's youngest sister. So Tuesday runs up to Claudia and hugs her, and she literally smells like a pissy diaper. And April seems super sketchy. April's like 16, 17. And it seems like April is like trying to get out of there. So Claudia asks Tuesday if she's been playing with Monday. And Tuesday says, yeah, but she's always hiding in the closet. Claudia asks April, I thought you said Monday was at your aunt's. And April says, oh, you must have heard me wrong. So Tuesday asks Claudia, like, can you come over and play? And Claudia says, soon. And then her and April run out of there. We go to February, and we're in the before. Claudia talks to Miss Valenti and asks if she's mad at her. And Miss Valenti says, no, I'm not mad. I was just disappointed, like, because she doesn't want her to be fighting. Because Miss Valenti feels like she was fighting. I don't know, but that wasn't fair. Like, I don't feel like circumstantially that was fair, but whatever. She asks Miss Valenti if she'll go by Mondays because things are not adding up. Everyone keeps saying that Monday is at all these different places and nothing is adding up. Miss Valenti tells her she will, but she asks Claudia, if I go and find Monday and she says, I just don't want to deal with Claudia anymore, like, can you handle that? If this is just a, like, I don't want to be friends with her situation, will you be able to handle that? And Claudia tells her yes. And so Miss Valenti agrees to go. We go to the after, and Claudia calls the old nurse. And the daughter of the nurse answers and snaps at her and tells her, like, my mother has Alzheimer's and she has bad days. And Claudia says, I'm sorry, I'm just looking for Monday. And so the daughter says, okay, we can try. So when the nurse gets on the phone, Claudia mentions Monday to her, and the nurse sounds panicked and asks if something happened, and tells her that, Claudia tells her she's looking for her. The nurse says Monday was never sick. And Claudia says, yes, she was. She had a really bad flu. So apparently, like, a year ago or something, Monday was supposed to have a really bad flu. Actually, her whole family had a really bad flu. And she missed, like, weeks of school. But the nurse says she never had the flu. I had to get her out, and it was all smoke and mirrors. The nurse starts to forget and panics and says, I have to find her. But then the daughter takes over and says, I told you. And she goes, I want to talk to your mother. But Claudia just like hangs up the phone. But then the phone starts to ring again and she's like, oh my God, she's calling back. And so she just like stares at it, and her mom answers the phone in another room. And so she's like trying to think of what she's going to do. But her mom tells her it's Michael. So Michael's calling. He says that he wants to take her to a basketball game at his school next week. And he's like, I wanted to get your mom's permission first. And she's like, well, how do you even know I want to go? But she agrees. So 1 year before somebody comes up to Claudia and Monday and is like, so you guys are like really, really gay? And they're like, Monday's like, no, like, why do you guys keep asking us that? And so today, like, something's different. Like, people have been teasing them about this, but like today something's different about this rumor. And this guy comes up and shows them a picture, and it's a picture from the bathroom that's been all over Facebook all weekend. So basically in the picture, it's them in that stall, and like it's after like Claudia had climbed over there, and they're like laughing at this point, but Monday's face is like in Claudia's lap because she kind of had like wiped her snot on Claudia. So her face is like down in Claudia's lap, and Claudia's head's back is like laughing because she was like, did you wipe your snot on me? And so she laughed. So it's like right when she laughed, they snapped the picture. And because neither one of them have phones, they don't have Facebook. So all weekend there's like over 200 shares or something like that. Everybody's been sharing it, and it's a very suggestive pose. So it could be mistaken as other stuff or whatever. So obviously they're mortified. So Claudia's parents come up to the school and like threaten the school like to sue and everything. And they're trying to figure out who did it. And Claudia basically tells Monday like, I think it was Jacob. But Monday like defends him like, no, like he wouldn't do that. And Claudia's like, he literally started the lesbian rumor. Like he was the one who said we were lesbians. We go to the after, and Claudia's not doing well dancing to slow music because every like one of the girls in dance is doing a solo, and Claudia has always danced to fast music when she was dancing with Monday. But now that she's in this advanced class, she is dancing to slow music, and the song that she was given is All I Ask by Adele, which I love that song.
I do too.
And she's like really struggling dancing to it. So she decides to write Monday about how she can't find something to wear to the game that night. And so her mom is super excited for her to go to this basketball game with Michael. So she dresses her like real cute. And she's basically been trying to convince herself like, this is not a date. This is not a date. This is not a date. And so she goes to the game. Like Michael tries to sit close to her. He's like, why don't you take your coat off? And she's like, this is not a date. This is not a date. So the dance team comes out and she sees Megan on the team. And then she's like, looks over to the other side of the bleachers and she notices a sweater that's hers. And she had loaned it to Monday, but it's April wearing it. And it's like, on her, it's like a crop top. So April and this boy like start to head out of the gym. So she follows them and literally like walks on the court and about get ran over like an idiot. And she literally finds them in a classroom like either having sex or about to have sex. And April like literally like sees her and she's like, Claudia, like, what are you doing? And like Claudia just can't believe April's doing this because this embarrasses Monday because people talk about April all the time. They basically call her a hoe all the time. So Michael runs up behind Claudia and like the guy, whoever the guy is, knows them. And apparently April doesn't even go to this school. April doesn't even go to high school at all, I guess. I don't know if that's related to this whole Monday situation or if she just dropped out a long time ago. I really don't know. But the guy's like, oh, like, Michael, you robbing the cradle? And he's like, no, this is Claudia. Like, she just goes to my church. Stop introducing me like that. Right. And the guy's name is Keith. And, like, basically they're like, oh, April doesn't go here either. Like, she, like, is basically just here to have sex or whatever. And he, like, walks off. So April's pissed. And, Michael is too, but Claudia's like, I want to talk to April. So, and he does not want her to stay with April, but he lets her stay and talk. And so Claudia asks about Monday again, and April says, okay, I'll play along. And she's like, she's at my aunt's. And Claudia says, well, Tuesday said she's at home and that she's been playing with her. April says, leave Tuesday out of this and don't bring her up. Claudia says, don't you miss Monday at all? And April says, you act like you know her. Claudia says, I know her better than you. And April says, okay, what's her favorite color then? And Claudia says, pink. And April says, wrong. April says her favorite color was purple, but y'all couldn't have the same favorite color, so she did whatever you want because you're the only person she had. Oh, and that boy that she fucked. And Claudia's like, Jacob? And April says, who said it was Jacob? So, like, basically saying, like, she's been sleeping with other boys. Claudia notices, like, a wound on April's arm and asks, like, what is that? And April basically, like, pushes her away and is like, I'm not going to keep telling you to stay out of my business. We go to the before, and Claudia's dad comes home and says that basically when he was out on the road, he ran into a man who said that he's been working with Monday's dad. And he was basically able to get his number or whatever and talk to him. And basically Monday's dad said that he hasn't seen Monday or any of his kids in over a year. And basically his story is he owes child support and he is afraid of their mom or that she'll call the police on them or whatever BS story when people owe their child support. I can't stand that lie as to why you don't see your kids, because nothing should keep you from seeing your kids. Blah, blah, blah. So she's not with her dad. There's that. We go to the after. Claudia's headed to church with her mom, and they have to take Michael. And so he is still pissed from the night before, so he gets in the car. They don't speak the whole way there. They didn't speak on the way home from the basketball game either. And her mom, like, when he gets out of the church, like, as soon as they park, he, like, gets out. So her mom's like, okay, like, what happened at the game? Like, what's going on? Nothing. They don't speak at church. So after church, her mom invites him to come to dinner. So he comes over, and, at this point, their TV and like everything in their house is broken. So first he's like, okay, well, I'm going to fix your TV. So he starts working on the TV, and like Michael likes technology and stuff. Like we learned that like a couple chapters back. So he fixes the TV. He's almost done. And he's like, I need your Wi-Fi password. And she's like, that's broken too. And he's like, what? So then he fixes the Wi-Fi. And like every time it's like, oh, my dad hasn't fixed it, but I'm pretty sure that this is purposeful. Did you think it was purposeful? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can't say why yet, so we'll get to that, but I'm pretty sure the TV and the internet are both busted for a reason. So he fixed both of these things, and finally, like after all of these things, she asks Michael, like, are you gonna stay mad at me? And he says, like, basically he was upset that she was chasing after April because he's like, she's a hoe. Like, I don't want you, like, associated with her kind of thing or whatever. And she's like, well, how do you know that? And he's like, everybody knows that. And she's like, well, April is my best friend's sister. And he didn't know that. So he's like, oh. And he's like, well, I'm not mad. He's like, I am upset because, like, we didn't get to chill how I wanted to. And her dad comes in and he's like, who's this boy? Who's this boy in my house fixing my stuff? And her mom's like, you wanted her to make friends? And he's like, yeah, not a boyfriend. But then they start like bonding over football and stuff, so that's all good or whatever. And then Michael ends up coming back on President's Day too, so like everything's good. We go to the before, and Claudia is starting to like the Learning Center, and Miss Valenti comes and gets her one day from class and says she needs to talk to her. She tells Claudia that she was right and she went by Monday's house, and she said something is not right with her mom, and she would not let Miss Valenti in, and that there was a little girl there in dirty underwear, and that Monday's mom slammed the door in her face. Claudia tells Miss Valenti that Tuesday was in a dirty diaper when she saw her. Miss Valenti says that she called the police and that they went by there and they said that everyone was accounted for. Claudia doesn't believe them, Miss Valenti doesn't believe them and said that she filed a report with social services. And she confirms what the nurse said. Monday and the younger kids were removed for a few years ago, but like basically her mom took some classes and was able to get them back. Claudia asks if she thinks that Monday's hurt, and Miss Valenti is like, no, I don't think it's anything like that. But just promise me you will never go to that house. And Claudia says yes, even though she has no intention of staying away from there. We go to March, and it opens with them saying that April was born on April Fool's Day and been lying ever since, and that her color is gold, which is similar to her mother's, which is yellow. So then we go to the after. Michael comes to visit Claudia at the library after school, and she kind of snaps at him and he basically says, like, can we not do this thing that we do every day where you pretend you're fine and you don't want me to ask, like, but you do. And he starts talking about how he's upset because basically Michael's dad is in Dubai. He like works on cars or something because it's really good money. And he's only supposed to be there for 3 years, but now he wants to live there full time and wants Michael and his mom to move there. And obviously, like, he doesn't want to live there. They don't play football in Dubai. And so Claudia just says, like, well, why don't you just move in with your grandma? And he hadn't thought of that. And Michael lets her know that he pretty much knows that she goes to the learning center. His grandma didn't tell him, but he's seen some of the work that his grandma gives her to work on. And there's like a boy that goes to his school that has the same kind of work. So he put 2 and 2 together. And she gets really embarrassed by that. So she doesn't really want to talk to him about that. Also, she is still struggling with her dance, and Megan comes up to her like she's having a private lesson and tries to help her practice and tells her like she needs to smile while she's doing it, and they practice together. So Megan invites her after this practice to a sleepover at her house that night, and Claudia's mom is super excited because she's finally making friends, and like she bakes cookies or something like for her to take to the sleepover. And so Claudia's like, well, maybe I can have a sleepover for my birthday party, and she asks if Monday can come to her party because she's never had a party before because she only ever had one friend. And her mom is like, don't start, Claudia. But Claudia thinks to herself, like, this is a test because Monday would never miss a birthday party. When she gets there, all the girls are kind of like hanging out and talking about like boys and things like that. And one of the girls asks if someone can do her nails. So she volunteers, and of course they're kind of like hesitant because she's a kid to them, but she does their nails. And then they start asking, like, why was she chasing after April? And they basically kind of say the same thing as Michael, like, April's a hoe, like, and they basically tell her, like, you don't want to be seen with April because people are going to think that you're kind of the same because of the rumors. So Megan's mom leaves to go to work, and as soon as she shuts the door, they're like, all right, we got 15 minutes. And so Claudia's like, what? And so they tell her that we're going to a party in Maryland. So they, like, give her some heels and some skimpy clothes, and the taxi is there to get them. So, like, they put makeup on her and everything. So they go to this, like, basically a basement party. And Michael's there. And he's like, why are you there? And Megan says, like, she'll never be ready if you guys keep babysitting her. So Michael asks, like, does your mom know you're here? And she says, does your mom know you're here? Like, boy, stop. Stop. Like, leave me alone. You're underage, too. Stop it. And he's like, well, I'm here because, like, my teammates are here. I don't care. I don't care. But Megan tells Claudia that Michael likes you. He doesn't pay any other girl's attention like he pays you. But they kind of like separate. Michael goes to like one side of the party and she's like hanging out. Like they push her in the dance circle. They're having a good time. And then like Megan, like all of them like hook up with their boyfriends. So she's kind of alone. And so she like, some boy like pushes up on her from behind and like she's dancing with him. But then he starts talking and she realizes it's Jacob Miller. And she is disgusted and is like, get off of me. And he's like, I just want to talk to you and tell you the truth. And she says, I'm not stupid. Like, I'm not going anywhere with you because you'll say that we did something. Which that was very smart of her. Mm-hmm. And she realizes that, or he tells her, like, Cam, which is Megan's boyfriend, is Jacob's brother. So when she first met Cam at the mall, she thought he looked so familiar, and it's because, like, he kind of looks like Jacob. And Jacob says that, okay, Monday basically, like, gave him a blowjob. They never actually had sex. And he said that because, like, she really wanted, like, to be with him, and that Jacob's mom called Monday fast, and so, like, that's why he would never be with her, and that's all they ever did. But Jacob says that Cam told him he was wrong for how he treated Monday and wanted him to apologize. But basically, he went to her house this summer and she wasn't there. And her mom chased him away. And then like this summer, he went to the rec and like the swim lessons, but she was never there. And Claudia's like, Monday never did swim lessons or went to the rec. And he's like, yes, she did. Like, what are you talking about? So Michael comes over and like kind of saves her from Jacob. And then they see a bunch of these guys come in who are like bad news, and April's with them. And they call the guys the Lynch Mob Boys. And the guys are like, we're not going nowhere. Like, I'm like, oh God, time to go. And then they see like April like kind of like tugging on the guy, and he's like, get off me, like leave me alone, whatever. And so I'm like, this poor girl, she like, please somebody help her. And April sees Claudia looking at her, so she immediately tries to get out of there. But of course, not listening to anything that anyone has told her, she chases after April again. So she chases after April and she's like, she starts begging April, like, please don't tell Monday I was here with Jacob, like, because Jacob happened to still be standing next to her and she doesn't want Monday to think like that she was hooking up with Jacob. And April just goes like, I won't. And she asks April, like, can you ask, like, if Monday can come to my birthday party? And April says, what? And then she just goes, Claudia, Monday is not coming. She says, you know, like, you never wanted to do anything. She was like, all you guys ever did was sit up in your house, and now look at you. You're at a party, and all you ever did was hold Monday back. And Claudia says, like, I know, and I'm sorry, and I just want to tell her that. And April says, Monday is not coming. She's never coming back. Claudia tells April that her dad talked to their dad, and he basically told her that he hasn't seen them in a year. And April goes, actually, it's been 3 years. So Claudia's like, okay, like that didn't work. And and then she goes, okay, well, I know that Monday didn't have the flu. And April says, you're not leaving me any choice. And so April goes, you know what? I'm just going to tell you. And Claudia says, tell me what? But then Michael comes out. And so Michael's like, you know, like, I'm looking for you. And Claudia's like, I'm fine. I'm just talking to, but she turns around and April's gone. So Michael comes up and like hugs and grabs her. And they basically just kind of like start making out. Also, Claudia's been drinking for the first time, so she's kind of drunk. So they start making out, and all she can think about is Monday, and she kind of decides like that she's gonna give Michael a blowjob. Like, girl, you are moving, and he does not want. He's like, Claudia, stop! Like, don't do this. And all she can think is like, if I do this, they'll start calling me a lesbian, and I'll be caught up with Monday. But then Megan comes out and calls her name, and so she just gets up and runs inside. We go to 1 year before the before. Monday pretends that the rumors don't bother her, but Monday stops calling Claudia as frequently. Her hair is a mess more and more. She starts missing a bunch of school, and when she does come to school, she eats like 2 lunches at a time. We go to the after, and it's the day after the house party. And on the news, they found a body. Claudia's at Megan still after the sleepover, and she's a little hungover. And the news is saying that there was a body found in Baltimore Park. And Michael calls Megan so he can talk to Claudia and basically tells her that he's going to be coming for dinner at her house tonight. We go to the before, and Claudia goes to Monday's neighborhood, and April sees her, and she says, like, you know you're not supposed to be here. April calls over a boy named Daryl and asks if he had sex with Monday. And Daryl says, like, he did, and says, like, he basically confirms it. And April tells Claudia, like, well, she didn't tell you because you're judgmental. So April decides to take Claudia to their house. And, like, this is the first time that she's ever going inside their house. And she tells Claudia, like, Monday's been here the whole time. And she says, like, my mom's out babysitting. So they go inside the house. It is disgusting. There's a huge, large freezer chest sitting in the living room. There's black trash bags over the windows, roaches, like dishes piled up, unopened bills, mail from the school. And like the freezer just like has a constant buzzing sound that she can hear all the way upstairs. And they go upstairs to a room. There's no bunk beds, but there are 3 twin beds in this room. And April says, don't you see her? She's all over the place. And Claudia's like, quit being funny. Like, where is she? And she's like, everywhere. Like, that's her bed. So she like sits on the bed, and April says, do you want something to remember her by? And Claudia says, she's not coming back. And so she reaches under one of the pillows and she finds her journal and she takes it. And it's the same journal, like the twin journal to the one that Monday had got her for Christmas. And Claudia starts begging April, like, where is Monday? But then Monday's mom comes home and April's panicking. And she's like, you have to hide. Get under the bed. Like, hide now. We go to 1 year before the before. They're in the car. Claudia and Monday are in the car with Claudia's mom, and they see April outside with Tuesday in August. And there's basically a bunch of protesters about when the legislation was passed to kick them out of their home in Monday's neighborhood. And April tells Monday, like, just don't worry about it. She'll take care of it. We go to the before. April says, hide under the bed now. And April says, the last time I saw Monday alive was with your mom last summer. And so Claudia gets under the bed and she hits her head on a book, and it's the Flowers in the Attic book. And so she's under the bed, and she knows she's under there for at least 2 hours because she counts the Simpson episodes, and she can hear Monday's mom downstairs, like, cackling at the TV. Tuesday tries to go upstairs and get her cup, and April tries to stop her, but she won't. So she comes upstairs, and, like, literally, Claudia's, like, 1 inch from her, and luckily, like, she doesn't get caught. And she goes downstairs, and literally, like, 2 or 3 more episodes go by, and she's still under there. And she thinks about how Monday told her she snuck out of the bathroom that time to go be with Jacob. So she's like, I have got to try and get out of here. And when Tuesday had come upstairs, she had left the door open. So she grabs the Flowers in the Attic book and she goes to the bathroom. And she hears Monday's mom laughing, and she can see April sitting on the couch. So she goes into the bathroom. She literally sees the box of hair dye from when Monday dyed her hair a year ago. She tries the window, and it will not open. It's stuck. So she is trying to get it open, and she literally hears Monday's mom saying she's going to the bathroom. And April is like, where are you going? And she's like, girl, I don't have to tell you where I'm going. So I'm like, oh my freaking God. So she gets in the shower, and I'm like, I know this bathroom is disgusting. If you've ever watched Euphoria have you ever watched Euphoria?
No, but I've seen that scene
when Cassie's in the bathtub. It's probably that, but worse. That made me want to vomit so bad, and I know this is 10 times worse. So she's basically in the tub like that, and so literally, like, Monday's mom gets on, like, uses the bathroom, and she's like peeing, farting, like all kinds of terrible, disgusting things. And luckily, she opens the window, and then she yells at April, and she's like, "Why didn't you replace the toilet paper?" And she's like, I didn't use the bathroom. And she's like, so you just sat at home all day and didn't use the bathroom? Like she's horrible. Yeah. So she finally, like, gets up and washes her hands, and literally Claudia's shoes, like, squeak on the, like, tub, and, like, her mom stops moving, but then, like, Claudia doesn't breathe, and so luckily she just, like, finishes and leaves. So the window is open, so she basically goes to, like, get out the window. She's looking down at these trash cans. She's like, oh my God, they're so far. Like, I'm not gonna make it. But she turns around, and Tuesday is literally standing there in the doorway, just, like, looking at her, and she's like, she's gonna start screaming. So she's like, she just jumps out, and literally Tuesday just, like, pees all over herself, and she just goes. And now we're in April, and we're in the before. So it's after midnight when Claudia finally makes it home, and her mom is, like, going off. Like, where have you been? There's people out looking for you. And all she can think of is, like, it's crazy that I've only been gone for a couple hours, and, like, there's a whole squad out looking for me. And Monday's been gone for 10 months, and no one will even come by here and check on her. But then, like, Claudia's mom, like, looks at her, and she's, like, scraped up, and she's like, what happened to her? So she tells her mom about that she fell, and then she asks, like, Mom, when was the last time you saw Monday? And she says, before you left. And she's like, no, when was the last time you saw Monday? And she says, Monday is not with her dad, and she did not have the flu. And she says, I think you knew that she didn't have the flu. Claudia's mom says, that was right after I lost the last baby. And Claudia goes to her room because her mom's like, we're going to wait for your dad to come home. And she pulls out the journal, and she doesn't have the key because April had said the key is with Monday. But she's like, okay, these are the same journals, so maybe my key would work. So the journal, like, in comparison to Claudia's journal, which barely ever been written in, Monday's journal is, like, almost full. And she opens it, and the first entry basically says that, like, Claudia basically, like, needs to be in slow classes. So she is, like, hurt. Yeah. Like, basically, it's, like, about when she was writing that essay, and, like, it was horrible. We go to the after, and Claudia's talking about how her life is basically so mundane now. It's just, like, school, church, dance, school, church, dance. She's at the library with Michael, and she can't get over, like, that journal entry and feels like Monday always lied to her. She pulls out the Flowers in the Attic book and asks, and Michael's like, why would Monday read that? And he tells Claudia, like, what's it about? And they run over to the library because Claudia has a thought. And so she asked the librarian, can I see everything that Monday has ever checked out? And the librarian's like, that's not actually true. We can only see that if they like reserved it online. And she's like, well, can I see that? And the librarian's like, well, it's against policy. But then she goes, well, I need to go to the bathroom. But she's like, Michael, can you, like, check something on my computer? Basically, like, I'm going to leave this up here and, like, you can look at it. So they pull it up, and basically Michael's like, all the books that Monday's ever read are, like, about child abuse. So it was, like, Perks of Being a Wallflower, Push, Sharp Objects, Flowers in the Attic. And Claudia thinks back to like what Monday's mom had said about how the government is watching them, like even with the books they get at the library. And she remembers Tuesday mentioning Monday being in the closet and thinks to and tells Michael that she has to go back. And he's like, no, call the police. And like, no, you're not going back in that house. You barely got out the last time.
Right.
So Claudia thinks like maybe her dad can help, thinking maybe Monday's dad can help because he can put in a missing person because the guy said it had to be a parent. So Michael's like, okay, well, I can have my cousin take us on Thursday. And basically their cousin says he'll take them, but they have to get a ride back because that's in like Maryland, Baltimore, something. I don't know. So they get to this like gas station, service station where Monday's dad works, but it's only 4:00 and the guys say that he won't get there till 6:00. So they have to wait for him. And we learn that Michael's going to be staying with his grandma and his mom's going to move to Dubai. So they talk about that. And then they almost kiss again. And he tells her that he was not drunk at the party. So he does remember everything. And finally, Monday's dad shows up, and before they can like confront him, one of his coworkers basically go and talk to him because when they got there, Claudia introduced herself as Monday. So they basically go and tell him like, oh, your daughter's here. And he looks like he's seen a ghost, gets in his car and drives off. So not only did they not get to talk to him, but they're now stranded because their plan was, we'll talk to him and he'll take us home, which was a stupid plan because he just got to work.
Right.
What were you going to do? Sit there his whole shift? Also, their parents don't know that they're there. So like, that was a horrible plan now that I say it out loud. So they have to go to the train station, and on the news, they're asking for help identifying the body of a 14 to 16-year-old girl found in the park. So it's that same person. And this is when Claudia's like, that must be Monday. Like, Monday's dead. She's just like, I'm convinced Monday's dead. And Michael says, like, that's not her. And Claudia says, well, how do you know? And he goes, Claudia, like, you really don't remember? And his phone's ringing, and he's like, the church tree is going off. Like, they're looking for us because, like, they were supposed to be home by now. And he's like, I've got to get you home. So we go to the before, and Claudia's mom is going to Monday's house to check on her. But before she goes, they're at home, and Claudia has a really bad fever today, and she's staying home from school. And there's like all of these sirens going off. So instead of reading from the beginning of her journal, Claudia decides, I'm going to start at the end. So what Monday wrote was, tomorrow Claudia's leaving for her summer trip in Georgia, and I'm going to tell her mom everything, and maybe I can live with her. Claudia's mom calls and says that she's on her way back home, but there's a lot of traffic, and they're blocking off stuff in Monday's neighborhood. And so then Claudia can look out her window, and she sees like an ambulance or something. So she's like, I gotta go see. So she runs from her house and runs to Monday's neighborhood. And basically there's all kinds of police coming from her house, but she noticed that there's no medics. And so she's like, there's nobody alive in this house. And what she's hearing is like all the neighbors talking, and they're saying that the police took April and that there were kids in the freezer. And she is like freaking out, and her dad ends up coming up and grabs her and carries her home. We go to the after, and her and Michael get to her house, and she says like, we need to go to the police. And Michael says, this is my fault. And he says, I thought that if she saw him that she would remember. And Claudia's mom says, it's okay, Michael. Her mom says that Monday's dad had already called her, and that Claudia starts saying like, I think that body is Monday, and everything is spiraling. And Claudia's mom says that I thought you were getting better. And Claudia says, why is no one listening to me? So her mom says, you're right. We should have listened to you the first time. And Claudia says, the first time? Her mom says her mom says Monday's been gone for 2 years. She says her and August died 2 years ago, and we keep having these episodes where you forget. Claudia says, how old am I? And her mom says 16. And she says, there's no way. I just turned 14 and I'm applying for school. And her mom says, yes, you are applying for high school again because we took you out. She says, Miss Walker has been homeschooling you and that we put you back in dance class to try to ease you back in. And Claudia realizes that her mom and Michael both look older now that she's actually paying attention, and ask about Miss Valenti, and her mom says that she moved back to New York. We go to May, and Claudia says, I knew she was dead, but what I hoped was that she was in the trunk of a car or something. We go to the before, and this is actually from Monday, and it says, I wish I had a mom like Claudia's. And then she says, last night, Mom beat August like she never had before, and he didn't wake up. So she made April put him in the freezer. And basically, Monday kept telling April that they needed to tell someone, but April was scared. And basically, the day that she bleached her hair and like tried to turn it blonde and everything, she almost broke down. So he was already dead at that point, and had been for a while. But like that was like kind of like the cherry on top. So like that day in the bathroom, she almost told Claudia everything about August. Monday's dad is claiming like he just didn't know that all of this stuff is going on. So the police start questioning April and Tuesday. And what we find out is August had been in the freezer for a year and a half. That is absolutely sick. How does a 10 to 11-year-old boy go missing for a year and a half and nobody cares? And Monday had been in there for 10 months. Monday's mom hadn't been home when they had found them in the freezer. She had been down the street smoking a blunt and basically like was like, oh, they're coming for me when they came and got her. And we switch back over to Claudia's point of view at this point. She basically kind of tells us about the funeral. The funeral was crazy. What's even more crazy is that, so at this point, Monday's dad's family kind of takes over for the funeral prep, and they didn't even have any pictures. They had a couple of pictures of Monday on a cell phone. So basically, Claudia's mom gave them a bunch of pictures, and not only did they have to get the pictures from Claudia, but they cut out Claudia out of all the pictures. And they barely had any pictures of August. Then, of course, because it was a huge funeral, it's like all this nationwide news, all the people at the funeral, most of them don't even know these kids or like them. Shayla and the other girl that I never remember, they freaking get up and talk at the funeral and cry and were like, we were friends, we loved her. They cry, and I literally put, please burn in hell. I would have got up and beat the crap out of these girls at that funeral. There's not, like, I swear, when I die, I have got to have a friend. Because if anybody does that, I'm pummeling you. There has got to be a special place in hell for that. There's no way that you just sat up there and did that. Like, what kind of audacity do you have to have? That is unhinged. That is mental behavior. The librarian and Miss Valenti do speak at the funeral and like give praise to Monday. Jacob goes up and puts a single rose on her casket, and then like, of course, they snap a bunch of pictures. So he's like all over the news for this after this point. And basically Claudia goes into a deep depression. So she doesn't shower. She stopped eating. She's not going to school. And the news like just keeps, you know how this goes down. So the news is constantly covering this for weeks. And finally her dad just like snaps because she's constantly watching on the news, and he like tears up the TV. So this is why the TV is broken. And I'm going to like recap this at the end because I know this is kind of confusing. So after a little bit, they go and visit April. So April gets taken truthfully now, April gets taken to her aunt's house because April is only 16 or 17, I believe. So she goes to her aunt's house. So they go and visit April. Tuesday is at the hospital because she's kind of having like a mental break. And Tuesday is like constantly asking for her mom and for Monday because it's my assumption, because she was talking about Monday in the closet. I'm assuming that she was standing outside the closet when, like, before Monday was killed, interacting with Monday. Oh my God, that is just so sick. I cannot. Somehow, some way, Monday's mom was able to call the aunt's house and try to talk to April. Not sure why. And Claudia's mom is like, she shouldn't be able to do that. And basically the state is trying to terminate both parents' rights, but the dad is trying to fight for them. And I think his right should be terminated too, because again, you did not try to have any interaction with your kids for years. And
you're not paying child support. You have literally nothing to do with your children. And
you also didn't know that your kids were missing for years. So, I mean, hey, there's that. Like, that pisses me off too. That pisses me off so bad. So basically Claudia's mom and the aunt kind of talk. So her mom asked her to take lemonade out to April because April's kind of just like outside, like, you know, she's kind of in a daze because April's traumatized too. I mean, she is a kid too. She's messed up. She is also like sexually abused. She was with these older guys. her mom was doing messed up stuff to her too. So she goes out there and April asks Claudia, did they tell you I helped stuff them in the freezer? And all Claudia can hear since that day that she went in that house is like buzzing constantly. Is she can hear that freezer buzzing. And April says the freezer was already full with August. Like she barely could get Monday in there. And she was like, the door wouldn't even shut. And she's like, I should go to jail. Like I'm an accomplice. And Claudia's like, please, April, like stop. And April says, I'm not sure if Monday was even dead or alive, but I was just trying to buy time. And basically, April says that a couple years ago when that whole, like, they had the flu thing happen, they got split up. And Tuesday got put in a different house. And the family that had Tuesday wanted to adopt them. So she had called her mom and was like, Mom, you got to get us back. They're going to take Tuesday. And so she did, unfortunately. And so she was trying to do everything to keep them not being split up. And so what April says is like, I'd already lost August. I wasn't going to lose Tuesday. And Claudia's like, so you hated Monday that much. And April says, Monday would have talked. And Claudia says, so Tuesday's in a better place now. And I agree. Mm-hmm. I mean, like, what the hell, dude? You are a kid, but like, you're very close to adulthood. That's fucked up, April. Like, that is. And I try not to victim shame. It's just a messed up situation. Like, dang, dude.
Yeah.
You should have let Tuesday go. You have lived in this house the longest. Why didn't you let Tuesday go?
I mean,
you should have let those people.
Let Tuesday go through the same thing that you guys are constantly going through.
You should have let them take her. So April says, I'll be 18 in a year and it'll just be me and Tuesday. And she says, I'm the one who signed, and she asks Claudia, she goes, do you know that I'm the one who signed Monday up to like read all the time over the summers? And basically that's how Claudia had met Monday. And April says, I don't know if I should hate or love you. And basically April and Claudia have like a mutual resentment. Like Claudia resents April because April is actually Monday's sister. And that's what Claudia wanted to be. But April resents Claudia because Claudia was able to give Monday a life that April never was going to be able to give her, and experiences. And that's where Monday wanted to be. So they have like a mutual resentment. April asks if Claudia's going to tell, like basically that, you know, she helped her mom. And Claudia's like, no. I mean, she's like, you know, she basically understands. I mean, you were going to be next.
Right.
So no, you kind of are terrible, but kind of not. Like, it's a messed up situation. So we go to the after, and Claudia's dad brings her an iPhone because he just like is like, she's miserable. And he says like, maybe this will help you remember. And so the first thing she does is search for Monday. And things that pop up are social service workers were fired. Miss Valenti had made 2 911 calls that no one answered. Plus the nurse had also tried and called. They basically think that Monday's mom had kind of went crazy due to the whole eviction situation. And Claudia, there's so many names, the back and forth with the names. Claudia starts talking to Michael and basically asks, like, why didn't the reporters ever want to talk to me? And Michael says, you saved her for years and didn't even know it. Like, don't feel like you weren't involved. So we go to the before, and detectives come to Claudia's house, and it's literally the detective that she went to try to tell to go check on her friend, which Monday was already dead, but it's literally the guy who was like, look at all these other girls who you're preventing us from saving. And he knows that he fucked up. Like, he looks like, hi, blah, 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 blah. So they ask questions and trying to build a timeline, and Claudia's mom says Monday came to see me a week after Claudia had left for the summer, and she seemed really frazzled. And they asked what she was wearing, and basically she tells them, and we learn that that's literally the last thing that Monday ever wore. So the day that Monday came and saw Claudia's mom, whatever happened after she dropped her off that day, that's when the like abuse happened, and she never changed her clothes after them because that's the clothes that they found her in. And they also had found a key on Monday, and they think it's to a journal. And they had asked April about it, and April said that Claudia took the journal. And basically, Claudia never told them that what happened about her going over to that house, which I don't know how she got out and telling them that,
Yeah.
but she never told them the whole like escape thing. So she tells them and they're like, go get the journal. And she's like, that's all I have of her. Like, she's like, will I get it back? And they're like, no, I'm sorry. Like, it's evidence. So she's like, she has a meltdown. She's crying. And she's like, she tells the detective, like, you owe me. And she's like, I never finished reading it. She's like, it takes me longer to read. Like, I'm struggling. And that's all I have of her. Like, it's so sad. And so she ends up like, they end up talking to her and she has to give it over. So she decides, like, I'm going back to school. Like, her parents had told her she didn't have to, but they go to work, so she goes to school. And everyone's like, hi, Claudia, like, why are you here? But she goes to school, and all she can hear is this buzzing still. And one of these fucking kids, man. So this kid comes up to her and says, like, I'm sorry your girl got murked. And she's like, leave me alone. And he's like, hey, he's like, he tells her, like, fuck you. Like, what? He was like, he gonna tell her, how you don't know your best friend's dead? I wish y'all could see my face.
Excuse me, but I've been trying to look for her this whole time.
And like, what? Like, leave me alone. And then you start telling me like, oh, like, I'm sorry I was trying to be nice to you because your friend's dead. What? So then Shayla is like, one of the mean girls is like, leave her alone. And the boy says, my dad said it took 4 days to thaw her out like a turkey. And Jacob says, leave her alone. And so then Claudia basically breaks and she starts talking in like that code that her and Monday have. And then Miss Valenti just comes in and grabs her. And that was her last day at school. So this is after, and she is at Michael's grandma's house. And she basically asks him like, why is he so nice to her? And he tells her that he actually saw Monday that last day that she was at her house with her mom. And basically he had went over there to drop off some ribs to Claudia's mom. And it makes him think like, what if that would have been Claudia? And like, what if that would have been her last day? And so then they kind of kiss. And when she gets home, Claudia tells her mom that she finally remembered her last day of school. And her mom's really like happy because she's like finally getting her memories back. And so her mom finally tells her, what happened. So she says that, Monday came over and she seemed off, but she didn't know what it was. So she said, I offered to drive her home. And after she dropped her off, she said that me and your dad talked about it and we made an anonymous call to social services. But she says, now I have so much guilt because she wonders if that made it worse for her. And she hoped when Claudia hadn't heard from Monday when school started that it was because social services had come and taken Monday and not what actually happened. And her mom says, I loved her like a daughter, and so did your dad, and I think it's time that we all got some help. Now it's June, and we're in the after. So Monday's dad files a multi-million-dollar wrongful death lawsuit. And it basically like starts this whole argument of like, who's really responsible for the death? Sir, you also weren't looking for her.
Right.
You
didn't want anything to do with her.
Like, the city is at fault, but you don't deserve it.
On it.
Yeah, like, you weren't thinking about it. And so Claudia goes to see April, and she is, like, working now, and April is like, oh, you finally remembered. And Claudia asks April, like, how many times have I done this? And she says twice, but this was the longest. So basically what we find out is that April, Michael, like, these people, and, like, they were basically playing along. So basically Claudia's mom had asked them, like, don't tell her, like, let her try to work through this so that it will help her through this process. So they knew that she was like relapsing in these memories, and that's why she was like, fine, I'll play along when she kept asking her these things. But then April goes, I don't know why I take pity on you because it's not like you lost your entire family. Like, I mean, kinda. Monday kind of was her entire family, like, to her. That was her whole world. And then, so Claudia's like, okay, so then why did you? And then April says, because you never stopped looking for her. And then Claudia asks about Tuesday, and she says she's better. She's going to school and therapy now, and she says we both are. And then, I keep on saying Monday. Claudia goes to her recital, and her dad brings her a folder full of copies of Monday's journal. So Claudia writes a letter to Monday and says that they just had a block party and a lot of people came home, and that she can read and write really well now and that she needs to get closure. So her and Michael are in the car and they're sitting in front of Monday's house, which is all boarded up now and it's really dilapidated. And he does not want to be there because it gives him the creeps, and I agree. But he kisses her and he's like, tell me the truth. Do you still hear the buzzing? And she says yes. So they play a podcast, and It's Monday's mom. So Monday's mom says that August kept putting his hands on girls and that the bruises they kept seeing on Tuesday and Monday were not from her, they were from August. And that one day he was hitting Tuesday and she was just a baby. And that was the final straw. And so she just choked him to death and then told April to put him in the freezer because she couldn't deal with it right now. Okay. And then she said Monday was fast, and she came home one day and saw her getting out of a car with some little shorts telling her, basically Monday was saying that she was going to leave, and her mom basically said, I just started beating on her and punching her, and I threw her in the closet for a couple of days, and Monday kept crying out for water and food, and if she made too much noise, I would go in there and kick her, but the last time she didn't get up, and I don't even know how she got in the freezer. And she says, I'm not sorry for what I done. She said, people keep making excuses, but I know what I did. And Michael hugs her because Claudia doesn't even realize she started crying. And she can just picture like Monday getting out of the car, skipping up to the door, going in the house. And pretty much Claudia only wears blue and black now because all the other colors remind her of Monday. But she goes up to the door of the house and like pulls on the padlock, and she puts her ear up to the door, and she doesn't hear the buzzing, and she thinks like she's not in that freezer anymore. And she jumps because someone speaks and it startles her, and it's an old lady, and she says, you're Monday's friend, and it's the lady that lives next door. And she's the only person still living like near the house because nobody else wants to live here anymore. And the lady says Monday used to sit on the porch a lot and would cry. And Claudia is like, okay, well, why didn't you say anything? And she says that I don't see my grandkids a lot. So when I didn't see Monday a lot, I didn't really think of anything because she knew that Monday was with Claudia a lot of times. And the lady says that, I have nightmares sometimes. And Claudia says, me too, mostly about the buzzing. And the lady says, yeah, I hear it too because that freezer set up against the wall of my house. And Claudia says, well, how did you get rid of the buzzing? And she says, I just decided it was humming, not buzzing. And Michael honks the horn, and she just runs and gets in the car and kisses him and take off. And that is the end.
The end.
Oh, so sad. So to just briefly recap that, what happened was, at the end, even before that. So in 7th grade, Monday's brother is murdered after winter break. I believe that he was autistic. It seemed like he had autistic behavior is what it seems like for me, because that is when Claudia kept asking about where he was, and Monday kept saying he was sick, and when she came back from break, Monday was really frazzled. And then that summer, Monday is murdered, and basically 2 years go by. So a year goes by before, almost a whole year goes by before Monday is even discovered. But because of the PTSD from all of it, Claudia doesn't even realize it. So she relapses in her memories. And so we're really like 2 years post discovery of Monday, when she's finally kind of coming out on the other end of that. And now April is almost 18. Tuesday is doing better. She's still like with Michael, and she's trying to go to high school late because of that. So yeah. Okay. I guess we can rate it in just a second, but this book is also like loosely based on 2 cases. So in 2015, there was a case out of Detroit, Michigan. There's a mother, Michelle Blair. She abused all 4 of her children. She murdered her 13-year-old daughter and 9-year-old son and hid their bodies in a chest freezer with the help of her oldest daughter. And then in 2009, in Washington, D.C., there was a case of Benita Jacks, who murdered all 4 of her children. And in that case, CPS and the local police department did not follow up on previous neglect charges, did not check in when the children didn't show up for school, ignored a teacher's repeated calls to report neglect and suspicions that something had gone seriously wrong. In both of these real-life cases, the children's bodies were only discovered when the mothers were evicted from their homes. The Jacks case inspired legislation in D.C. allowing police departments, CPS, and schools to relax confidentiality guidelines and communicate more openly in cases of suspected abuse or neglect. Jackson hopes that Monday's Not Coming will help raise awareness of the prevalence of cases of Black children and especially Black girls going missing, and an issue that gained momentum in 2017 when the hashtag Missing Girls DC went viral. So, there's that. So what did you rate this?
I rated it 4 stars.
Yeah, I'll give it 4 stars too. I am traumatized. I am so sad. I am devastated and distraught.
Yeah, I have a decent amount to talk about this book.
Okay, go ahead.
But, okay, so 4 stars. Really, really enjoyed it. But I feel like I would have given a higher rating if the timeline wasn't so confusing.
Yeah, that makes it hard. It makes it hard to talk about.
Yeah, and I was like, yeah, the back and forth and just adding in the amnesia really threw a wrench in it. I was very confused and still like struggled to connect all the pieces. But I also wanted to bring up the lack of desire from her dad to help get answers about Monday was like astonishing to me.
And it was infuriating.
Because I had a couple friends, one in particular, that was at my house multiple times a week. And if she all of a sudden dropped off the face of the earth and didn't have any contact with us, like, my mom would burn down the world to help me find her. So that was just kind of...
That's so weird.
I don't understand.
I mean, I know that there's people like that. I don't know. I mean, I don't want to say dads are weird. But, like, and I don't know. Like, I try to think about, like, I know that there are people who feel like they should not get involved in other people's lives. Like, I know that there are people like that. I know that I am nosy. I know that about myself. But I just can't imagine a kid being... And also... knowing that this kid is being abused, because the parents knew that. There's no, and I can't imagine that the mom knew for one, especially because especially we know that they made a report. They made an anonymous report. So you guys made a report and didn't even follow up. Like, okay, so I would check and see. Okay, well maybe she's gone. Like, hi, I'm just calling because I made a report anonymously and now she's missing. She's not at school. Like, I know you can't tell me much, so I'm just like, I'm concerned.
And when there was some back and forth information, like, that should have been a big red flag too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because they knew that they called and reported, but they're getting shifty information from the mom about what's going, like...
And they're not going to just take her.
Right.
So it's like the fact that and why was nobody concerned about August being missing?
Right.
That's weird to me.
And, like, they missed doctor's appointments.
Yeah. I'm convinced that he was autistic. I'm 1,000% convinced. And I really hate that. Yeah, like, nobody was concerned about... Like, that's crazy to me. And I am, like, obviously, I talk about it all the time. I'm a nurse. I'm a nurse practitioner, so I am a, what do they call it? Like a required reporter or whatever like that. It should, but I have called, I've only ever called once. It wasn't about abuse. It was more so like neglect. But then I felt like when I called, like they were just like, meh.
Unfortunately, I think that's the case a lot of the times.
Yeah. And I was like, why? Like when you call, you start second guessing yourself. And I'm like, why do I feel like this? Like I felt like this mom had like Munchausen's, and I still do. And I was just like, but I'm calling. I'm like, dang, like, am I wrong?
Yeah, no, we
mandated reporter. That's what it's called.
Yes.
I was like, what is that called?
My family and I dealt with the CPS and that whole mess. We've dealt with it a couple times. Brought in kids, family members. Not gonna get too deep into it, but even with that, like, there was seeing that side of the whole is, yeah.
It's crazy.
It sucks.
I mean, even where like we live, like remember we had like that one little girl here that was abused and like died, and it is so sad. And like I was talking about Gabriel Hernandez. Like his case was, he was like adopted by his uncles, and they were gay, and then all of a sudden his mom went in back like basically for food stamps, and they basically like were locking him in a cabinet and like making him wear dresses and feeding him like kitty litter. And his teacher was calling, but like they have pictures of him and you could like see him progressively get worse. And it's so sad because like right before he died, like it was Mother's Day, and he like had like Mother's Day call because he loved his mom, but like CPS would call, but they would never like put eyes on him. And it's just like, why? Like it's so sad. And like, you gotta do that. You gotta do that.
Yeah, no, we, so, like I said, we've dealt with the CPS, for multiple children, and we, in one instance, they pretty much told us, you know, our goal is to get them back with a mother.
It always is. It always is. And it makes me, like, I know, I have thought about fostering. My mom even, like, works for a foster agency. And, like, she's like, don't do it. And not because of that, but it's just, like, it's so hard on foster parents. And I know, like, like, with being on the medical side, like, there will be people, like, they have, like, 2 years or something. They'll be, like, all the way up to adoption. And then the parent will have no contact.
Very last minute.
And they'll have contact. And they'll start that whole thing. And I'm like, how do you have no contact with the child for 2 years? And then, like, boom, you guys think, like, you think that's healthy for a child? Like, you think that's okay?
Right.
And also, like, as judges and stuff, I'm like, if you with a child, if your child's other parent didn't have you would send your child? Like, you wouldn't. And that's, like, you sit up here and enforce these laws, and, like, not to get on tangent about it, but that's, like, it just blows my mind. And I'm like, and it's just, like, there's such a, like, to home thing with that, and I'm like, it's not healthy for them. It's not. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah. Well, and there's, like I said, the goal is always to get him back with the mom.
And that's why they don't have foster parents, because it's like, people would be foster parents if they knew that it wasn't, and it's like you have to drop everything to be a foster parent. Like, I've seen cases like, well, I don't want my kids to, like, go to this doctor. I want them to go to that doctor. I don't want them to get their hair cut here. I want, like, and you have to do that. Like, no, you lost custody of your kid. Like, that's unreasonable. Like, when you lose custody of your kid, you don't get to tell me, like, what doctor, like, you know, like, if I'm taking them to, like, a reasonable place and there's not, like, a legit reason, but it's like, and then, like, there's, like, these foster shortages, like, well, then, and, like, in this book case, like, like, there's no reason that she should have been able to get those kids back.
And even, you know, if they admit, you know, the children admit, I'm scared to go home because of X, Y, and Z, and it's, it sucks.
Yeah. I just, like, I don't know, like, I read this book, the first time I read this book, I was a mom too. I want to say I read it in 2018 when I was pregnant with Carter. And I was sad then, but I don't know if I'm just, like, more emotional now. But I was, like, almost into it. Like, I literally was, like, distraught when I, like, finished this. I finished it last night because I just, like, it just makes me so sad because this is, like, so common. And there's so many ways, like, it didn't have to happen. And she was, like, crying out for help. Yeah. She was checking these books out in the library. Why is this girl reading these books every day? And yeah, like, the dad, he does piss me off. Like, what do you mean just get over it? Right. And then, like, I hope you feel like shit now. Like, I hope, and then, but he didn't. So then you decide to, like, tear up the TV and the Wi-Fi. Because, that's why I was like, I'm sure that's on purpose. So then your TV and Wi-Fi was tore up for 2 years? Because you're mad, because you were a jerk, because your daughter's friend was missing and was dead, and she was right. She was right. Right. Like, that's crazy. Like, you suck. I'd probably get a divorce. Like, I'd be on the way to divorce because, like, that's just terrible. And I'm like, and he's like, you could talk to me about anything. Can I? Can I? Right. Yeah.
Well, and let's bring up Shayla and her friend crying at the funeral.
I would have beat them to pulps. They probably would have been like, oh, Claudia's having a meltdown. No, I'm not. I'm not having a meltdown. This is not about Monday at all. You are pieces of trash. Yeah. And the fact that everyone allowed this, don't allow it. If I die, especially like if I died at a young age, hopefully not, somebody at my funeral, please get up there. And don't let that happen. Don't let somebody that you know I don't like or does not like me Do that.
Yes. So the funny thing is one of my best friends, shout out to you, Kinsey. Her and I had this discussion, and we were like, I will be
if
I die
over that casket
and somebody that I do not like or I do not know goes up there and starts boo-hooing, you better kick them out. Like, that's
crazy. I wouldn't even want to go. I don't go to random people's funerals. I think that's so strange when people are like,
right.
Like the like wake is one thing. Like, I'm paying my respects.
Right.
For me to just go to a random funeral of someone I'm not close with is already another thing. For me to get up and I don't even speak at people's funerals. I do know. But for me to get up there and full out pretend, and especially when all these people know that you didn't like all these kids are here that you went to school with. They know what you did. That is some mental behavior, and you need to be assessed. That is beyond. Like, that's really strange, and your parents should be concerned. But she didn't, like, Monday didn't have parents because your dad doesn't know because you weren't involved. And the dad, you're a piece of trash. You didn't know that your kids were dead for 2 years.
Yeah.
I don't care how much support that you owe. Like, I'm an advocate for child support. I think that it makes things very black and white. I think it prevents people from arguing about money. Mm-hmm. I think that it's responsible because most people do not handle money well. So that's that, whatever. However, in the event that you cannot pay that, for one, if any court of law, if you didn't know this, they don't prevent you from visitation if you don't pay your child support. So there's that. So I'm not going to go 3 years without seeing and or talking to my children because of it.
I'm not going to go 3 days.
Yeah, like, that's crazy. Like, I'm literally leaving in a couple hours to go on my bachelorette trip, and I get anxiety every time I have to be away from my kids. Like, I just hate it. Like, I love my kids. I know I'm a mom and I carried them, but, like, I just can't imagine 3 years.
I mean, that's Peyton and Tristan aren't even. I did not birth them. Yeah. But they go to visit their grandmas every other weekend for a couple of hours, and I'm like, are they okay? Are they happy? Are they safe? Like,
I'm about to cry because I just think about it. Like, I think about, like, Carter in the morning, like, because Carter's still little. Cameron's, like, moody, so she's not as much. But, like, Carter gets up, like, he's always like, good morning. He hugs me. He's so, like, squishy. Like, that is, like, these are my babies. Like, one, I can't imagine ever harming them, not seeing them. Like, what, like, I do get mad at my kids. Like, they do stuff, like, whatever. Like, the things that happen in this book are so, like, beyond, like, I can't imagine them.
I don't know how you get to a point.
Yes. And I just asked, like, this even goes back to infants. Like, when we talk about, like, parents, when they have infants and they cry and stuff, like, please. Like, if you ever find yourself so frustrated, just, like, an infant, just put them down and just walk away. Just please, like, leave the room or, like, and come back when you feel cooled off. If your kid makes you mad like that, please just walk away. It is so much better for you to go and admit to a professional that I do get upset and angry before you actually commit the act.
Right.
Because you can do things in that. But once you do something to this level, then yeah, you are facing serious consequences. But I can't imagine that. Like, I can't. And then, like, yeah, like, yes, the city is at fault. Like, they absolutely are at fault. 100%. But, like, he doesn't deserve the money for the death of them. He didn't even pay for. You didn't pay for this funeral. I know you didn't pay for the funeral. You didn't pay for any of that. The only person who deserves something is Claudia. Claudia and Miss Valenti, and maybe Claudia's mom, because she was the only one that was listening.
Right.
That's it. Those are the only people. And, like, that's it. Claudia deserves free therapy for the rest of her life as much as she needs. And that's it. Like, I don't know. That disgusts me. And of course he's, like, all in the news now. Like, had a shirt. I didn't even say that. He had a shirt with, like, her face on it.
I would be so mad.
And, like, are you parenting the other kids now? I'm assuming all of them were his kids. So I'm like, are you parenting the other ones? Because it didn't say that.
Right.
Oh, no, I think April did say that she talked to her dad once. Since, like, the whole thing. I don't know.
Yeah. No, it took me, I was, like, listening to the audiobook, and I was just thinking about, me and my childhood best friends, like, if I were ever in that situation with one of them, like, I don't know.
I had a friend who lived in my neighborhood. I literally went over there every day. Every day I was at her house. If I just up and did, like, with no, like, hey, I'm never coming back. Like, if they would come and check on me. And, like, yeah, like, that's weird. This is weird behavior. But, yeah, I don't know. I could talk about it forever.
Yeah, same.
It's sad. It's just, yeah. So I highly recommend reading it. It's the same thing. Like I just feel like it is a good read, and it's less confusing when you read it yourself. It is. I mean, it still can be confusing, but it is less confusing when you read it yourself. But I mean, it was a reread, and I still enjoyed it. I forgot the whole amnesia part. Anyways, it's been a few years. I was like, wait a minute, what? And I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. So, yeah, I was hurt. I was heartbroken.
Yeah.
All over again. So, okay, well, so our next one is gonna be a two-parter. So originally so our next one is A Court of Silver Flames by Sarah J. Maas. We cannot do that. From here on out, all of our Sarah J. Maas books are probably going to be two parts because all of Crescent City is long. Throne of Glass, I can't remember, but most of those books are long too. There's just absolutely no way. I'll be updating when I post April's like breakdown. So A Court of Silver Flames will actually be in two parts. So our next episode will be A Court of Silver Flames Part 1. So excited to talk about that. And I think that is all.
That's it for me.
So make sure you're following us on all the socials, TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook at Booktrospective. And we'll talk to you guys later.
Bye.
Bye.